Welcome back to a beautiful football afternoon here in Baltimore. The temperature is right around 60 degrees. It is windy, and it will gust up to around 35 miles an hour, which should be fun for the kickers. The Cincinnati Bengals won the toss. They will defer, which means the Baltimore Ravens get their hands on the football first.
Greg, you talk about that wind and you talk about the kickers. I think you also have to talk about any pass that's more than about 15 yards downfield. The football might do some funny things if it really goes for a ride on one of those gusts.
That's Jacoby Jones, the #1 kick return man in the NFL a season ago with more than 30 yards of return. And he'll get a chance here, 4 yards deep in the end zone. Across the 20 and knocked back at about the 22-yard line. Joe Flacco on pace for a career high in passing yards for a season, but he admits he's been struggling. 10 touchdown passes, 9 interceptions, with Baltimore on the brink at 3-5, and perhaps no one is feeling the weight of this day heavier than Joe Flacco. The Ravens start from their own 22. Flacco, right off the bat, completes across the 25 and out to about the 28 or 29-yard line to Ed Dixon. The Ravens have lost a terrific guard in Kelechi Osemele to a bad back. Second-year lineman A.Q. Shipley moves in at left guard. No question the Ravens need Ray Rice to kick it into gear, averaging less than 3 yards a carry. He had just 17 yards rushing in last week's loss at Cleveland. On 2nd and 5, this is Rice. And he doesn't get much there to the 29-yard line. The Bengals defense has lost a huge contributor up front in Geno Atkins. Brandon Thompson moves up to start at tackle. Ray Maualuga is out. Coach Marvin Lewis says he could return next week. Vincent Ray starts at middle linebacker. And with another important defensive cog gone and cornerback Leon Hall, Adam Jones starts at corner opposite Terrence Newman. 3rd and 4. Flacco, running out of time, throws and in and out of the hands of Dallas Clark.
Well, you rarely ever saw Dallas Clark drop a pass like that, especially on a 3rd down situation, which was a chain mover. Joe Flacco delivered a perfect pass, and Dallas Clark just, again, the kind of little things that have been plaguing the Ravens on their way to this losing record. That should have just been an automatic first down.
Sam Cook to kick it away. Brandon Tate back inside his own 25. And he'll get a chance to return this one to about the 30, maybe the 31-yard line. Good field position for the Cincinnati offense. Bengals quarterback Andy Dalton having a decent season, 16 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, but striving, as we said, for more consistency. He is completing 65% of his throws on the year.
Well, remember, Greg, before that game against Miami, he was 16 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, which is more than 2 to 1, which from a quarterbacking standpoint is playing good football. Joe Flacco on the other side only has 1 more touchdown than interception.
This has been Jarvis Green Ellis finding room to run up the middle across the 35 to the 37-yard line. The steadying influence on the Bengals offensive line. Andrew Whitworth back at left tackle. He's had a sore knee. And one of the Bengals' big offensive weapons is wide receiver A.J. Green, whose 862 yards receiving lead the NFL. 7-yard pickup for Green Ellis, and it's 2nd and 3, and Dalton to throw. And that's complete for a first down to Green across the 40 at about the 43-yard line.
Well, Ladarius Webb right there matched up on A.J. Green, and A.J. Green at 6'4", such a target, and you see right there the kind of hands that he possesses. You know, that was a pass that was in a similar place like the one that Dallas Clark dropped, and you just soft and supple. He just reaches out, snatches it cleanly, pulls it in.
Supple?
Supple.
Supple. First down, the 44. Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis for a couple across the 45. Baltimore's defense has at least 2 sacks in 16 straight games. Defensive end Arthur Jones has 3 of them. Outside linebackers, a quarterback's nightmare with Suggs on one side and Elvis Dumerville along with Courtney Upshaw. And the Ravens secondary has the rookie at safety, first-round draft pick Matt Elam from Florida. Giovanni Bernard is into the Cincinnati backfield on 2nd and 7.
This is one exciting rookie, Giovanni Bernard. He is a sideline to sideline and sometimes all on the same play.
Dalton's pass knocked down on a fine play by Darrell Smith.
Well, that time Dean Pease, the coordinator, comes with a blitz, and that way the Ravens knew that they're going to sit on the short routes because they know the ball's coming out in a hurry. And that's exactly what Darrell Smith did. He undercuts this, almost comes up with the INT. It was just a little too far out in front of him. He didn't have a realistic chance of pulling that in.
3rd and 7. Good protection for Dalton. That pass is complete to Bernard out of the backfield, and he is very close.
I think he's a little short
to the first down marker at the Baltimore 47.
Now, granted, he's only 5'8", but he's short of getting the yardage for the first down, and you can see right off the bat that Walt Coleman signals 4th down.
And they're going to go for it, and in a hurry, too. Dalton gets his team lined up.
Well, this is quite a statement by Marvin that just barely into Ravens territory, that he feels good enough about things that he's willing to put his defense in a tough spot.
Dalton with the keeper and pushing, and the spot is going to mean everything right here.
Well, if Andy Dalton comes up with a first down, it's not going to be by much more than the length of a football, if that. Because the Ravens dropped their hips, they sat down, and they didn't yield on the line of scrimmage.
Our referee today is Walt Coleman. And here comes the first big measurement of the day.
I'll tell you, looking at that spot, Greg, I don't believe he got it. Once all the people step away from the football, that is short.
By about the length of the football. Big stand for the Baltimore Ravens, and they take over with really good field position in a must-win game for the Ravens. Dan, a very un-Marvin Lewis-like decision on that 4th down.
Well, Marvin's a lifelong defensive guy, a defensive coordinator, never wants to put his defense in a compromising position. He just rarely ever makes a decision like that, especially this early in a ball game. That big chance by Marvin.
Flea flicker, Flacco going deep, down the middle of the field. That ball is incomplete inside the 5-yard line, and the flag is thrown.
Oh, they're going to call interference on Reggie Nelson. Joe Flacco, that ball was underthrown. If he could put another couple of yards on that.
Pass interference, number 20, defense. Ball being played to the spot of the foul.
Well, this is a situation where the ball being so underthrown, it works out for Baltimore. Jacoby Jones so wide open, but Reggie Nelson doesn't know where the ball is. He never turns around. He never plays the football and just cavalierly runs right into Jacoby Jones. That was a sloppy play by Reggie Nelson.
48-yard pickup on the penalty, 1st and goal for Baltimore at the 5.
If Nelson would have just identified where the ball was, he could have pulled up.
Ray Rice for a couple. Let's go back and take another look.
Reggie Nelson has no idea where the ball is, and all he could do was to just try to time his getting in the way. That the percentages of pulling that off are very slim. And now again, that decision by Marvin, he has put his defense in a very compromising spot.
Haloti Ngata, defensive lineman, has come into the lineup on offense.
He's a tight end. He's right in.
This is Vontae Leach. And Leach to about the 1.5.
I'll tell you one thing about Ngata at tight end. He's got good hands. I'm sure that somewhere in the system they've got a pass to Haloti Ngata in the end zone. He's got, I don't want to say supple hands because you've already made fun of me.
Please don't.
Once. But I wouldn't be afraid to throw it to him. There he goes over here now over on the left side.
3rd and goal. Play fake. Flacco on the move. Still looking. Penalty markers are down as he completes it to Dallas Clark for the touchdown. But let's check the flags.
Well, the Bengals lost track of Dallas Clark. Flacco extends that play. Give Joe all the credit in the world.
Holding, number 32, defense. Penalties decline. Touchdown.
The penalty is on Chris Crocker.
Well, Joe Flacco puts the pressure, and look at Dallas Clark. They've got him. Crocker's got him. He didn't want to let him get up, and then again, Crocker just loses his balance, stumbles forward, but that is all Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco, by buying all that extra time, pressured the Bengal defense until they cracked.
That is the first Baltimore touchdown in the first quarter since their opening week game at Denver.
And let the second guessing on Marvin's 4th down decision begin.
Marvin Lewis decides to go for it, doesn't make it. Field position, pass interference a couple of times, and a 7-0 Baltimore lead.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by Southwest Airlines. Find our fares online only at southwest.com. Mercedes-Benz and the all-new CLA. And by Quicken Loans for a mortgage experience that's engineered to amaze.
.9:42 to play in the first quarter. The Ravens taking advantage of a couple of calls made by the Bengals for a 7-0 lead. Brandon Tate is beaten. And this one will be run out of the end zone from 5 yards deep. Tate with a full head of speed, cutting to his left, and made it out to about the 20-yard line. Let's go back to that touchdown pass.
Well, Joe, here's Dallas Clark right here. He's going to fall to the ground, but look at this, the I formation. It's a power running formation, and the play action pass, all the linebackers for the Bengals are at the line of scrimmage. But this is Joe Flacco, his athleticism, and he throws an extremely accurate pass. Again, Joe right there, a little fake as he gets around Dunlap, but as he is on the verge of stepping out of bounds, a perfect strike to Dallas Clark. Well done, number 5.
So Dalton and the Bengals from their own 20-yard line. Dalton, quick slant, incomplete, intended for A.J. Green. It'll be 2nd and 10.
I think that was Jimmy Smith, the corner that was. That's Webb. Take it back. That's Ladarius Webb. Talk about perfect timing. Arriving at the receiver at the exact moment the football does.
2nd and 10. This has been Jarvis Green Ellis for no more than 2 on the play. And it'll be 3rd and 8.
The Bengals haven't enjoyed a lot of success here at M&T Bank Stadium. We've documented numerous times over the years what a markedly different Ravens team this is here in Baltimore. And now they get to play with a lead. The crowd is into it. This is a perfect start for the folks in purple.
Third and 8, and fans are on their feet. Dalton had it batted down at the line of scrimmage.
I think Courtney Upshaw got that. Oh, Haloti Ngata came in and hit. That's going to be roughing the passer. He put his helmet right into the chest of Dalton.
Rubbing the passer, number 92, defense, 15-yard penalty, first down.
Well, the blocked pass doesn't matter. You cannot put your helmet anywhere on the body of a quarterback and not get the flag for roughing the quarterback. And that's exactly what Haloti Ngata did.
So instead of kicking the football away, the Bengals get 15 yards and move out to the 35-yard line.
You know, John Harbaugh is arguing, well, he didn't hit him in the head. It doesn't matter if you hit him in the head, coach. If you hit him in the torso, if you do the striking with your head, that's the penalty as well.
Make it the 37, the line of scrimmage. This has been Jarvis Green Ellis left side out to the 40-yard line, and Haloti Ngata making the legal hit there.
And Ben Jarvis Green Ellis does the heavy lifting in this Cincinnati running game. He's the power back. He seldom ever fumbles the football. Very sure-handed. Remember all his years with New England. And then the change of pace comes in, and that's Giovanni Bernard, their second-round pick out of North Carolina. But the dirty work is done by Ben Jarvis Green Ellis.
On 2nd and 6, this is an end around Marvin Jones, and Marvin Jones with a head of speed close to midfield and enough for a first down.
Great hustle by Chris Canty getting all the way out there on the perimeter along with Ladarius Webb to make that hit. You know, Chris Canty, a 6'7", but he's a tremendous athlete and he can run. That was a good illustration, getting all the way out there to make that hit. You don't see many defensive linemen running down wide receivers.
First down now. The Bengals at their own 48. Bernard in the backfield. Bernard with the handoff across midfield and into Baltimore territory. We get our first NFL Today update of the day from New York.
Giants special team gives one away, but makes up for it.
Oh, yeah, they do. Demontre Moore. He comes up the middle and blocks the punt. Then Cooper Taylor picks it up, goes 21 yards for a touchdown. That ties the game at 7.
Greg Gumbel and the Hall of Famer, Dan Dierdorf.
You know, when you're the New York Giants and you're playing in a division that hasn't been exceptional, you're always a contender.
Aren't you being nice? Hasn't been exceptional.
2nd and 6. Dalton. Whiff time down the sideline. His receiver pulled up short. Mohamed Sanu pulled up short and Dalton went long.
Well, Mohamed Sanu breaks off his route, and when I mean breaking it off, he just comes to a stop. He gets routed to the outside by Jimmy Smith, and then a complete disconnect with his quarterback. The only good news for Andy Dalton is that he outthrew everybody, including the Ravens secondary.
So now it's 3rd and 6, and the Bengals need the 42-yard line for a first down. Dalton running out of time. 3 on the play clock. 2, 1. Did they get it off? They did not.
Delay a game. Offense. 5-yard penalty. Still 3rd down.
Andy Dalton still making adjustments and then couldn't get the ball back in time.
Yeah, at first glance it looked like he might have been trying to call timeout, but he was not. He was sending a play call out to his wide receivers.
So now he looks at a 3rd and 11.
This is where Suggs, Dumerville, and company have been pretty darn good this year.
And here they come. Dalton barely got it away before he was buried back at his own 36-yard line.
I mean, you know the pressure is coming. Even if it's not an overload, which this is only a 5-man rush, but you see Webb coming off the corner, Brown up the middle, Elvis Dumerville there. And that was, I think, from Andy Dalton, just a throwaway. He didn't have a receiver anywhere close to that, and that was a good stand by the Ravens once the Bengals got into their territory.
Tandon Doss standing back at his own 10-yard line for the punt from Kevin Huber. High and short. And it bounces, and it takes a Ravens bounce before it's down inside the 25-yard line. 6:34 to play in the first quarter. Baltimore 7, the Bengals nothing. invite you this week to not miss the show that's in a league by itself with guys who take on all 32 teams and each other. James Brown, Phil Simms, Chris Collinsworth, the artistry of NFL films, the chemistry of the boys inside the NFL. The show the pros watch Wednesday at 9 only on Showtime. 53 penalty yards the Bengals have been hit with. The big one in that one, the 48-yard pass interference call that set up the touchdown. Outside of that, the Ravens have run 6 plays and gained a total of 11 yards. Bernard Pierce is in the backfield. Flacco rolling, throwing, got his man across the 35, across the 40, and out of bounds, Torrey Smith.
Defenses have been smothering the Ravens' running game, and this is something Baltimore has got to do, especially on first down. Throw the football and make it happen between the numbers and the sidelines. Once again, Joe Flacco demonstrating how comfortable he is throwing on the run. Delivered a very accurate pass. But this will get him out of a defense with 8 men in the box. If you are successful passing your way out of it by playing outside the numbers on first down.
This is Pierce. Pierce around the left side. There's a penalty marker thrown in the backfield.
Personal foul, grasping the face mask, number 32, defense. 15 yards from the end of the play, first down.
Well, Chris Crocker has built a mountain of sins here in the first quarter alone. That'll advance the Ravens all the way.
Well, this is
right around the 40, inside the 40-yard line.
A Bengals defense, Greg, that is trying to adjust. They lost their best guy in the secondary, Leon Hall, when he tore his Achilles in October 20th. Then last week they lose Geno Atkins, their best defensive lineman.
This is Bernard Pierce with the catch out of the backfield, splitting tackler inside the 30 and close to the 25, where Vontaze Burfict finally drags him down.
Well, this looks like a couple of the Bengals are going, I thought you were going to tackle him. And the other guy goes, no, I thought you had it. And Bernard Pierce just runs right between them. Right there. Or you got to do better than that. Vontaze Burfict, at least at the very end, got in there and got him down. Not until he was dragged for a couple yards.
Flacco back at it in a hurry in the ground game up the middle inside the 20 to about the 18 is Pierce. As you were explaining it, Dan, it's very simple. When you stack the box against the Ravens, then Joe Flacco, as you mentioned over the weekend, hasn't been able to throw his way out of that situation.
Well, he has today so far, very early in this game. We're still in the first quarter, but you're exactly right. And the Ravens take the blame for that. They said, hey, nobody's going to help us out of it.
2nd and 1, lofting it for the end zone. Torrey Smith! Incomplete. Covered by Terrence Newman on the play.
Well, Terrence Newman and Torrey Smith are locked up here one-on-one, and this time he's got tight coverage, although Newman's ball awareness isn't very good either. He has no idea where the football is, and it's just a little bit high. Torrey Smith fights it. Man, he was close to getting it. But again, another Bengal defensive back, and his ball awareness not very good.
So on 3rd and 1, Flacco, quick pass out to the far side, and that bounces to Torrey Smith, and it'll be 4th and 1, and the field goal unit will come on.
See, that's one of those throws that Joe's, every now and then he just throws one of those that you go, wow, how could that happen?
Because he sure has a better arm than that.
Well, that's the easiest. There's nothing to that. That's an extended handoff. That is akin to a running play. And he short arms it, and it just flops in there short.
Now Justin Tucker kicking directly into the wind from about 36 yards out. And that one is strong and straight. And a little bumping and shoving in the middle, and they'll break that up. But meanwhile, it's a 10-0 Baltimore lead.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by AT&T. Rethink possible. And by Jared, the Galleria of Jewelry, with 5 times the selection of ordinary jewelry stores.
It's a 10-0 Ravens lead with 4:39 to play in the first quarter as we welcome you back to Baltimore. And the Ravens have taken advantage of every opportunity they've been given here today so far. Although, as they say, Dan, it's early.
It is early, but falling behind early to the Ravens at home is a recipe for a loss.
Tate dropped it and will down it in the end zone. So they will start at the 20-yard line. Fantasy football fans get a fresh start with Player Challenge, a 4-week game that now includes even bigger cash prizes. See rules. Sign up at cbssports.com/challenge.
When you got a team that's lost 3 games in a row and they get home and they're really banking on playing well at home, spotting them a 10-0 lead is talk about an injection of confidence. That's exactly what the Ravens have right now.
And Andy Dalton has to figure out a way to get this thing started offensively. Fakes the pass, gives it to Bernard. And Bernard, when all is said and done, gets about 2 yards on the play.
We all know the importance of division games, and Baltimore not only climbing back closer to 500 if they were to win today, but they reel in the Bengals. They pull them back to the pack, as they're the only team right now in the AFC North that has a winning record.
These teams will meet in Cincinnati on the last game of the regular season.
And the Ravens desperately want that game to mean something.
Dalton on 2nd and 8. Over the middle. Incomplete. Pass intended for Marvin Jones. Another update from New York. JB and Dan Marino.
How much hotter can Nick Foles get, Dan?
He's on fire. 7 touchdowns last week. Nick Foles down the middle of the field, throws it up, 55-yard touchdown. He gets the good bounce. Deshaun Jackson, perfect. 7-0 Philly.
You know what? Including the bounce, Greg and Dan, I'm sure you would say that's exactly how the coach drew it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, really. And there you see in the NFC North, 3 teams in that division have winning records.
Dalton has thrown 4 straight incompletions, and he's looking at a 3rd and 8 right here for a first down. Has time throwing, and that is complete across the 30 and out to about the 35 or 36-yard line is Mohamed Sanu for a first down.
Well, that time the Ravens elect to come with just a straight 4-man pass rush, and the result is no pressure on Andy Dalton. And he throws a high pass, and that was really nice by Mohamed Sanu of going up and getting it. But again, no pressure that time. The Bengals offensive line snuffed out the 4-man rush.
Bengals minus the services of their fine young tight end Jermaine Gresham today.
He's got a bad groin muscle, and missed this.
This is Bernard. And Bernard wrestled down by Haloti Ngata. Now, Giovanni Bernard listed at 5'9", 208. Haloti Ngata listed at 6'4", 340.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he was tackled or absorbed here. He just kind of disappears. One of the best defensive linemen in the game of football, Haloti Ngata. And I know Giovanni Bernard is going, I'm going for a ride. I just hope it ends okay. The good news is it ended without Ngata on top of it.
Dalton throwing out to the far side, and that was really high and difficult for Marvin Jones to handle. By the time he came down with it, he was surrounded by Ravens.
Yeah, we just saw a bubble screen like that thrown by Flacco, and he threw it in the dirt. That time Andy Dalton almost sails it over into the bench. I don't think the wind had anything to do with either one of those throws. Not at that distance.
3rd and 7 now. Bernard still in there. It was a question mark today with sore ribs, but he is playing. Dalton rolling, looking, throwing. Bernard out of the backfield, reaching for the first down marker. And if he didn't get there, he is within inches of it.
Go look at this. You're right. It looks so close. That was a heck of an effort on Giovanni Bernard's part of realizing his situational awareness on the far side of the field and where the sticks were. For a guy who's not real long, in his arm length and leg length. He maximized it, stretching that out.
Inches.
Let's take a look at him stretch it out. And again, here's Marvin Lewis facing another short yardage situation on 4th down. Now he was just barely on the other side of the 50 before, and here he is on his own side of the field.
And I'd say he learned his lesson.
And now he's going to kick at a shorter distance. And again, that's why we were all surprised when he went for it the first time. Marvin is a defensive guy by nature and does not want to put his defense in a compromising position, and that's why everybody was
Cincinnati is challenging ruling on the field of the forward progress spot.
Well, they'll take another look at just how far Giovanni Bernard stretched that arm.
Welcome back to Baltimore, everyone. Let's take another close look at this. Walt Coleman is doing the same thing under the hood. Bernard stretches. It is microscopically close.
After reviewing the play, the ball was at the 46-yard line when the runner was down. That will be a first down for Cincinnati. Cincinnati is not charged with a timeout.
That is a terrific challenge by Marvin Lewis.
And Walt Coleman saying that when Giovanni Bernard goes out of bounds, that he got the ball up to the 46, and that is enough for a first down. You don't get the spot where it actually touches out of bounds. It's where it was when you crossed the marker, but Walt Coleman thought he saw enough to go ahead and award the Bengals a first down.
So instead of kicking it away, the Bengals retain possession at their own 46-yard line.
And that was some effort that deserves praise by Giovanni Bernard.
Bengals have now converted 2 third downs in a row on this drive.
With their number 1 draft pick, Tyler Eifert, right here, the tight end in the backfield.
This is Bernard. And Bernard with running room up the middle. Inside the 40, spinning to the 36, and another first down.
Boy, talk about a burst. Look at Bernard. This is going to come right in between the center and the right guard. And take a look at the lack of pursuit by the Ravens. Terrence Cody can't get into that gap, and we've got an injured Raven.
That's Haloti Ngata.
Back at midfield, Ngata he's up but not moving.
Well, the loss of a Haloti Ngata dents your interior line play.
Yeah, in many ways. We're talking about a guy not just on the field, but in the absence now of Ray Lewis and Ed Reed and people of that caliber. Haloti Ngata, one of the veterans that is in a real leadership role with this team. And he is a pro. I mean, this guy, a good person, an even better football player. Let's go ahead and keep an eye on Ngata right here as we watch him on this play. Good leverage. And then it looked like something gave way. Looked like he went down on his own, but something popped. What happened?
On first down, this has been Jarvis Green Ellis inside the 30 to the 29, and the Bengals unfolding a running game now in the final seconds of the first quarter.
And the second time in a row, right off right guard, as they found a soft spot, and they're going right at it. And of course, right now, that's where Haloti Ngata would have been.
Number 62, Terrence Cody.
Well, you worry about when a guy went down the way he went, Greg, that he gave it up because something went wrong when he was trying to make a stand.
2nd and 3. Going to keep it on the ground. Then Jarvis Green Ellis. Not much there at all, and that should bring us to the end of the first quarter that has belonged to the Baltimore Ravens. But with the benefit of a good challenge by Marvin Lewis, Bengals looking to climb right back in. End of one, 10-0 Baltimore. back after this. You're watching the NFL on CBS. Back for the start of the second quarter, and as we said at the very top of the day, that's the kind of challenge that faces the Cincinnati Bengals. You just don't knock off the Baltimore Ravens in this stadium very often.
And of course, since 08 means since John Harbaugh has been the head coach of the team.
Incidentally, Haloti Ngata has gone to the locker room. The word from the Ravens is that he has suffered a sprained knee. First down. From the 26, Andy Dalton deep down the far sideline. It is incomplete, not out of bounds. Mohamed Sanu, the intended receiver, covered by Jimmy Smith.
Well, Andy Dalton identified that he had single coverage because the blitz came off the edge. But Jimmy Smith did a good job. Now he didn't get a jam on Sanu, but running right with him. But you know, Jimmy Smith turned and identified where the football was. Now, that ball was uncatchable as it was a couple yards out of bounds, but at least Jimmy Smith used the technique where he identified the ball flight.
This is Bernard. And Bernard is met by Josh Bynes at the line of scrimmage.
Well, not much in the way of yardage, although Joe Flacco does have the one touchdown pass after the long interference penalty against Cincinnati. But this crowd's starting to warm up. They know on 3rd and 8 what happens around these parts. Now the last time the Ravens were in this situation, they came with a 4-man rush. It didn't get to Dalton. They're showing a double A gap. They're getting in on either side of the center. Will they come or bail? Here they come.
Dalton on the move. Throwing sideline, and that's too short. Mohamed Sanu on this sideline, and Ladarius Webb was right there with him.
When we talk about threatening the A gaps, that's on either side of the center. That's these two guys right here who are threatening blitz right up the gap, which is the quickest way to get there. And you can see that they're trying to run a stunt. And Arthur Brown went all the way to the inside when in reality, if he'd have freelanced and taken a run straight at Andy Dalton, he'd have been right in his grill.
Mike Nugent from 42 yards out, trying to get the Bengals on the board. And he pulled it back. .59 to play. The Ravens withstand the scoring attempt and still have a 10-point lead. Dan, a look at that tells you that Cincinnati just hasn't done very much right yet today.
Well, that's a recipe to a loss. If they don't turn that string around, that's just exactly the things you do to guarantee you're going to end up losing.
This is Rice, and Rice hit in the backfield by Michael Johnson.
Well, if you're going to run a delay, you better make sure that your offensive line up front gets an absolute seal on everybody at the line of scrimmage. And it looked like Ray Rice actually bumped into Joe Flacco a little bit on that handoff, but it was a dead play because Michael Johnson was already in the backfield.
Lost 2, 2nd and 12. Give it once again to Rice, and Rice out to about the 35.
Well, there's the 4th down quarterback sneak by Andy Dalton that didn't get there. Here's the 48-yard pass interference call on Reggie Nelson that led to the Dallas Clark reception for a touchdown, and then a relatively short field goal by Nugent. He just hooked that all the way. You don't blame that one on the wind either. That thing was snap hooked into the woods.
3rd and 7 on the blitz. Flacco is hit. And here comes a flag, and that receiver on the far side was tackled. Torrey Smith was tackled by Terrence Newman.
Boy, and Joe Flacco stood right in there.
Pass interference, number 23, defense. Slowly placed at the spot of the foul. First down.
Well, that's Terrence Newman. Again, what a move to the outside by Torrey Smith. And Terrence Newman just tackles him. And again, you know, up the middle comes Vincent Ray, the linebacker, and you notice that he hits Joe Flacco. with the crown of his helmet as he leads in there instead of a shoulder. That could have been flagged in my estimation.
First down from the 49 now on the end around. That's Tyrod Taylor, the backup quarterback, and he is out of bounds at about the 35.
What a block out on the edge. As Taylor comes around right out in front, we've got a couple Bengals that just get put onto the ground by a couple sensational blocks. There's one by Ed Dixon, and then downfield we had another one, I think, by Torrey Smith.
Flacco throwing out to the side, and Ray Rice has that, and he is hit almost immediately by Vincent Ray.
Yeah, Vincent Ray is playing the middle for the second week in a row because their normal starter, Ray Mauluga, is down with a knee injury. And Ray Rice had no opportunity there. He's lucky he even held on to that.
When we spoke with Ray Rice yesterday, he had a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, didn't he?
Well, especially when he starts hearing and reading about people saying they think he's lost his step.
And he gets nothing much there. Domata Peko with the stop. Hey, with NFL Mobile, you can get live video access to exclusive premium content on your smartphone. Call *NFL to download or go to NFL.com/mobile to learn more. Message and data rates may apply.
Now the reality is that for a couple weeks there, Ray Rice had lost his step. Quite simply, he was hurt. That hip flexor was really bothering him. He was playing through it, but he certainly wasn't moving the way he used to.
Flacco in the grabs, puts it up for grabs, and it's intercepted. Picked off by Ray, Vincent Ray.
And that time Ray Rice misses a blitz pickup right up the middle. Ray Rice had a chance to give his quarterback a little extra time and ends up not being able to make the block and hit as he throws that little floater right to Ray. Carlos Dunlap wrapped all around.
And finally, the Bengals get something going in their favor.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by the Home Depot. More saving, more doing. That's the power of the Home Depot. Verizon. Verizon's 4G LTE is in more places than any other 4G network. And by M&M's. Chocolate's better with M.
Hey, Thursday on CBS, Will Arnett, Margot Martindale, and Beau Bridges star in the #1 new comedy, The Millers, Thursday after The Big Bang Theory, only CBS.
Well, Ray Rice's job on that pass right here is to pick up this guy right there, Vontaze Burfict. And watch, he's going to jump too far to the other side. Burfict goes right around him, and that flushes Joe Flacco. From that moment, he's got 55, Burfict coming right at him, and the play is over at that point in time. Joe's fighting for his life, and then he ends up getting hit as he throws, never able to set his feet.
So that sets the Bengals up at their own 35-yard line with the Vincent Ray interception. Coming across is Andrew Hawkins. Andrew Hawkins lost the ball.
Well, he got it back.
Terrell Suggs had a shot.
Well, again, trying to set up an end around, and Hawkins had it, but never had it. He just was not comfortable with it. He keeps trying to put it in a better spot. You can see he never got his right hand in control of the football. And then trying to look at the defense, identify would-be tacklers, he loses it. Fortunate for him, it came right back to him.
Lost 3 yards on the play, 2nd and 13, and Dalton to throw. Down the middle, diving for the ball is Tyler Eifert, the rookie from Notre Dame.
And Joe Flacco is bleeding a little bit there on his elbow. Training staff trying to clean that up. Again, Jermaine Gresham isn't playing today. And that means that Alex Smith and Tyler Eifert are having to do the majority of playing for the Bengals at the tight end position.
Now, Tyler Eifert's had pretty good production this year with 27 catches and over 300 yards receiving, but Alex Smith is yet to record a reception this year. 3rd and 13. Dalton throwing, and that is incomplete at midfield. Marvin Jones, the intended receiver.
Well, Jimmy Smith this time the corner to that side. Now he does get a jam right there on Jones and rides him. Again, Jimmy Smith never plays the football. He's playing the receiver. He sees when Marvin Jones is going to go up for the football, and he adjusts and makes his play accordingly.
Huber kicking to Tamden Doss. Doss at his 24, shakes a tackle, and out to about the 28-yard line.
Well, we're just getting started here in the second quarter, but Andy Dalton has had his share of things going on. You see right there that almost got picked off. That's a disconnect between his receiver, Sanu. A one-hopper down to Sanu again. And it has been a bit of a herky-jerky. Andy Dalton, 5 of 14. That is really bad. And again, this is a guy who made a couple of horrible throws last week. No touchdowns, 3 interceptions in that loss to Miami.
This is Bernard Pierce, and we're talking, Dan, as we have all day long, about how the Bengals need him to be more consistent rather than being up and down.
Well, in this day and age where all the rules favor the passing game, and it's never been easier to throw the football, and never been easier to throw the football for a higher completion percentage, to be in the National Football League and be looking at a 5 for 14 is, right now, Andy's got to be, he's not panicked, but he's upset.
Flacco going deep. Incomplete. Torrey Smith double covered. We get another update from New York. JB and Dan.
Tavon Austin, Interstate 98.
Yeah, right down the rail or sideline, that is, of your Interstate, JB. He goes 98 yards on this punt return for a touchdown, putting the Rams up 21-0 in Indy. What a surprise.
I wonder if Dan Dierdorf has added a little yeast to some of his stories, saying he was that fast like me. Back to Dan and Greg.
Oh, no.
I could have backpedaled into the end zone faster than that. Hey, the Rams have been waiting for a big play from Tavon Austin for a while.
Flacco under pressure and goes down. And that's Vincent Ray once again. And that will bring the punting unit on for the Ravens.
And again, right now, the defenses are winning this game with the exception of the Bengals, and that big pass interference call, that really put them in a tough spot that led to Baltimore's lone touchdown.
What did Marvin Lewis tell us about Vincent Ray in Miami? The players were giving him grief about being out of position. He was the only one who was in proper position on the particular play.
Marvin wanted everybody to go to apologize.
Brandon Tate. Tate waiting for blocker, trying to turn the corner, and goes out of bounds across the 35-yard line. Andy Dalton going to try to reacquire some passing touch when we come back. Number 18 is A.J. Green. He's caught just one ball today for 7 yards. In fact, both teams 36 yards passing on the day. They aren't exactly burning up the airwaves.
A.J. Green, though, coming into this game, leads the NFL in receiving yardage. Ravens said we're going to double him on every play.
On first down, this is Bernard looking for running room, and he can't find any before number 32, James Ahedibo.
Well, I'm not a running back, never was a running back, but I can pretty much guarantee you that this move seldom works, where you come to a complete stop and don't go anywhere. They will find you, even if you're only 5'8". I believe from the running back position, perpetual motion is a theory that might work a little more than the coming to a complete stop and looking both ways. Great for crossing the street, not so much for running the ball.
Loss of 1 makes it 2nd and 11. They'll try it on the ground again. To the 35.
Well, Tyson was right there again. This Ravens defensive line is clogging things up. D'Angelo, Tyson, and the big bodies you can see in there. The Cincinnati offensive line is just not getting a push at all. Right now the line of scrimmage is being won by the Ravens defensively.
Remember, this is a defensive line with the Ravens that is now missing Haloti Ngata. who has gone to the locker room with a sprained knee. Dalton over the middle, intercepted. Up the sideline, James Ihedibo. And there is great field position upcoming now for the Baltimore Ravens once again.
Boy, and
we have a penalty marker down.
the struggles of Andy Dalton continue.
Walt Pullman talking about it with the rest of the officials.
Well, obviously what matters here is whether this was before or after the interception.
Ihedibo with his first pick of the season.
Personal foul, low block, number 12 of the passing team after the ball was intercepted. We will add 15 yards on to the end of the play, or half the distance to the goal. First down.
All right, let's take a look. Andy Dalton working the middle of the field. And that, first of all, Tyler Eifert appeared to be covered, and the ball just severely sails on Andy Dalton. I can't conceive of any route that would have put Tyler Eifert anywhere near where that ball went to Ihedibo.
And right in the middle of your picture, you saw that block by Mohamed Sanu.
And on a change of possession, there's no blocking below the waist. And Andy Dalton right now, 5 of 15 with 1 interception.
Last 2 weeks, he's had no touchdowns and 4 picks. Rice in the backfield.
Arizona Bison! Arizona Bison!
Flacco for Rice, and Rice ducks inside the 10 to about the 8. Whistles blow.
Well, we had Michael Orr finishing his block, which is what good offensive linemen do. He just buries whoever it was that was underneath them from Cincinnati. Now, take a look at the end of this play. Out of that pile, there comes Michael Orr. And again, Carlos Dunlap comes in to try to help out his teammate. Hey, that's just, you're finishing your block.
Even if it is Tuesday.
He can't hear the whistle. He's going to play until it's over.
Flacco to the end zone. Caught by Torrey Smith for the touchdown.
Well, that's one of the best catches that Torrey Smith has ever made. That is going up. That was Anquan Bolden-esque. Going up, competing for the football, knowing you are going to come down awkwardly. Look at that. Catches the back half of the ball, hits hard, and maintains control. That was really good stuff by Torrey Smith. And right now the Bengals are in deep doo-doo.
Tucker for the extra point. And with 6.5 to play in the first half, it is all Ravens. They jump to a 17-0 lead. Terrell Suggs told us yesterday, when you are at home, the ball comes your way, the calls come your way. 17-0 Ravens.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by Acura. Meet the extremely new 2014 MDX at Acura.com/MDX. And by Chase Freedom. Get your cash back.
When Cincinnati visited here last season, Baltimore won at 44-13, which means in this game in the last, the Bengals have been outscored 61-13. It's a Bengals defense that allows just over 18 points a game. They've already been hit with 17 today as the wind blows the ball off the tee.
Well, like, it's not hard enough to win close games in this stadium. The Bengals have just dug themselves an awfully big hole. You got to think that the only way out of this thing's got to involve some help from their special teams. Kickoff return, punt return. And it's got to involve Andy Dalton being able to start completing a few passes.
Brandon Tate will not run this one out of the end zone, so Dalton will begin at his own 20-yard line.
Well, Jim Caldwell gives him a look with Ray Rice split wide. Here's Torrey Smith, but watch this. No bump, no rerouting, giving him a clean release. Joe Flacco sees that void in the middle of the field. That's just way too easy on the part of the Bengals. And again, that is a beautiful catch by Jimmy Smith. A great look at a guy going up with a hands catch, and Marshall Yanda goes, you know what? I like it.
So the Bengals defense back onto the field, a defense which includes Haloti Ngata. On first down, Dalton, incomplete on the slant, intended for Green. Second and 10.
And good news for the Ravens that even though he went into the locker room to have that knee looked at, they didn't find anything wrong. You just always get a little concerned when a guy just voluntarily drops to the ground because he felt something in the leg. One of the good guys and really one of the superior players. I think it's pretty safe to say that the Ravens are going to do everything they could do to keep A.J. Green from being the guy to make a play.
Dalton on second and 10. That pass is complete, but not for very much to Bernard out of the backfield. Close to 5. It'll be 3rd and 5.
And it's not much, but it is a completion. The only place Andy could throw it. But here's where they've had some real problems. They've had problems with the pocket integrity. His offensive line has struggled to keep people from out of his face. And right now, Andy Dalton's confidence level cannot be very high. And when you say when your average is 3rd and 9, bad things happen.
Quick pass, Bernard trying to turn nothing into something and can't do it. In fact, he lost yardage on the play. Jimmy Smith coming up from his cornerback position as Dalton was under a huge rush.
Well, for years, we've been watching the Ravens play defense like this. Aggressive, swarming, pressure the quarterback and fly to the football. And there is a guy that has stepped into the shoes that were being worn by Ray Lewis. Terrell Suggs has maybe having one of his best years.
Tandon Doss let this one bounce out of bounds. 5:01 to play in the first half. That has been all Ravens. A Tuesday on CBS, a Person of Interest 3-episode event begins, and this time a hero will fall. Don't miss a new Person of Interest Tuesday at 10/9 Central, only CBS. A look at the numbers for Andy Dalton and Joe Flacco today. Giovanni Bernard, the game's leading rusher, with 27. And Torrey Smith with 25 yards receiving. Bernard Pearson in the backfield. Flacco still with the ball, throwing. And that's complete out to the 45-yard line. Torrey Smith on the receiving end. That's a good, accurate throw by Flacco on the move. And you'd have to say the Baltimore Ravens are reacting appropriately considering what's going on in their division.
Well, they have got to get Cincinnati to come back to the field. And they're in the process of doing that right now as they try to crawl closer to 500.
Flacco deep down the far sideline. It is incomplete. Torrey Smith running, Terrence Newman running right along with him.
Well, and Mike Zimmer, the defensive coordinator of the Bengals, just the way on the other side they're handling A.J. Green, that's the way they're looking at Torrey Smith. They're very seldom going to cover Smith with single coverage. Mike Zimmer in his 6th season now being the defensive coordinator in Cincinnati, and one of the best. And one of the guys I'm pretty amazed hasn't gotten a head coaching job by now.
Gusty conditions and Flacco trying to take advantage of that a little bit. Has time, lots of time. On the move, and this time, Carlos Dunlap brings him down, and there's a flag.
Personal foul, horse collar tackle, number 96, defense, 15 yards, first down.
Let's take a look.
The right hand. Well, he had the hand on the back of the jersey, but he doesn't seem to pull Joe Flacco to the ground with it. Now, Walt Coleman, the referee, was right. There's no question that he's got a hold of the back of the jersey. The hand doesn't have to be down inside. It's just that's not the classic horse collar where you see the guy actually keep being bent backwards as he's pulled to the ground.
Nevertheless, new set of downs across midfield. Bernard Pierce, and a penalty marker flies from the near side as he's brought down at about the 44, maybe the 43-yard line.
You got to wonder if this isn't some holding call on the Ravens.
Holding, number 14, offense, 10-yard penalty, still first down.
It's amazing to me how you linemen recognize those holding calls instantaneously.
Well, they get wide receiver Marlon Brown. Ooh, and that's a pretty good one too. He just grabs Chris Crocker, pulls him towards him. That was blatant.
First and 20.
And it was at the point of attack. All the more egregious.
Flacco throwing this side and incomplete, intended for Pierce out of the backfield. And Vincent Ray once again in on the play.
Well, and a ball from Joe that was thrown high. You know, the wind is swirling down there on the field, and at times it's a pretty formidable wind, but you know, on a short pass like that, it's not that bad down on the field, of course, as those flags look like at the very top of the stadium, but still, you wouldn't think it would have that big of an influence on a pass that short.
Flacco, and this one in and out of the hands of Chris Crocker. He had an interception and it just couldn't hold on. The receiver fell down on the play.
Marlon Brown, number 14, tries to make his cut. Down he goes. And of course, Marlon Brown, a big receiver at 6'5". That ball was actually right in his wheelhouse if it wasn't for the fact that he's on the ground. And Crocker showing that most DBs started as wide receivers and got moved because they can't catch.
Flacco, Torrey Smith. Smith looking for running room and actually gives ground back to his own 47-yard line.
Well, Torrey Smith gave up a good nearly 5 yards in trying to find a way out. Well, he was trying to make a big play. Can't fault him for that.
So Brandon Tate drops back at his own 10-yard line. And Sam Cook will be kicking with the wind at his back. Lofts this one up high. Fair catch called for and made at about the 12-yard line. And we have a penalty marker down.
Yeah, on the far side of the field over about the 12-yard line.
During the kick, holding, number 27 of the receiving team. After this to the goal, first down.
So that's Dre Kirkpatrick guilty of the hold, and that'll back the Bengals up even more. And that shot in our aerial coverage of today's game is provided by MetLife.
Well, it's a beautiful day here in Baltimore. Temperature in the 60s, sunny. The inner harbor is sparkling, and it is Other than the fact that the wind is gusting, it's absolutely a perfect day for football. I'd have to think that any pass over 20 yards or so has a chance of being affected by the wind.
This has been a disastrous quarter for the Cincinnati Bengals. They've managed just 3 total yards here in the third, and that one batted down at the line of scrimmage. Is that Naka?
I believe it was.
The big guy.
Again, Haloti Nada, nice little swim move over the top and kept that left arm up in the air and got the football.
Nada on my watch.
And Andy Dalton looking at a 7 for 19 day so far. 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. That's dismal.
Nothing to write back to Cincinnati about. Dalton again at his goal line, tipped on its way and incomplete.
Well, 2 passes and 2 tips.
And this Baltimore defense getting more and more active and more confident as the game progresses.
I think that was Elvis Dumerville that got a hand on it.
Now that's no surprise. Couple of the longer arms on the team.
Well, yeah, but they're attached to a 5'11" body. But you're right, he's got long arms.
3rd and 10. Too many penalties for the Bengals so far today. Dalton completing 2 of his last 10 throws.
Here comes the blitz.
In a hurry, he threw it complete. Mohamed Sanu across the 10 and out to about the 14-yard line, and they'll have to kick it away.
Ladarius Webb timed it pretty well as he loops underneath and comes right here. He comes from the left-hand side. He comes underneath Dumerville. And Sanu lost his footing just a little bit and really didn't find himself in a position to, if he'd just been a couple more yards upfield, he could have challenged the first down marker.
And that will take us to the 2-minute warning. Boy, what a regrouping the Bengals will have to do at halftime. 3 and outs the last 4 drives. They're down 17. You see each team with its full complement of timeouts as the Bengals get set to kick it away. Tamden Doss has a chance for a return here from his own 42. Right up the middle into Cincinnati territory and down at the 47-yard line. Gives us an opportunity to remind you the Verizon Halftime Report is coming up from New York. JB, Dan, Shannon, Boomer, Coach Bill Cowher will have all the latest NFL scores and highlights coming up on the Verizon Halftime Report.
Well, really good opportunity now for the Ravens to add to their lead. Having all 3 of those timeouts. They just haven't. There's the average drive start. What the Ravens haven't been able to do is get Ray Rice busted loose. 6 carries for a whopping 10 yards. Not even averaging 2 yards a carry.
Quick pass, incomplete. Intended for Torrey Smith, as the Bengals just barely got a 12th man off the field before the snap of the football. Now, as you pointed out, Dan, it's necessary for Flacco to throw the ball well, but they've been successful here in the first half, partly because of that, but also the Bengals have contributed a lot to their own demise.
You're right, they have. And you're right, the Ravens have been successful throwing the ball on first down. That was a rare missed pass on first down. But you want to set up the running game by being successful throwing on first down.
Hey, Alaska!
On the blitz, and down goes Flacco back at his own 41, and once again, Vincent Ray makes the play.
Well, and again, the hardest pressure for a quarterback is right up the middle, right up the left guard center gap comes an untouched Vincent Ray. And Flacco had no chance whatsoever. And now all of a sudden, a golden opportunity to get some points before halftime is a 3rd and forever.
3rd and 21, Flacco throws Rice out of the backfield, midfield, and forward to about the original line of scrimmage at the Cincinnati 48. Chris Crocker making the tackle. And as we come down to 1 minute to play in the first half, the punting unit will come on.
And Marvin is
letting the clock run rather than using a timeout,
which I'm surprised. I'm surprised that he's not calling a timeout. You're down 17-0. at least find out if maybe you get, there's a shanked punt, maybe something happens that you can come up with some decent field position and at least attempt to get down the field.
They have burned at least 25, 30, 35 seconds now. And now the Ravens call timeout before the play clock expires.
John Harbaugh is upset about, not sure if he's upset with the officiating crew on something. Certainly the Ravens can afford to take a timeout in that situation once all the clock was burned up.
But at the end of that previous play, there were between a minute 10 and a minute 5 to play. Yeah, and the Bengals did not call a timeout.
I'm just really surprised they didn't. Justin, okay, if Baltimore executes, they're going to be looking at 80 to 90 yards to go. But what could happen? They could block a punt. They could, if it was a shanked punt, something bad happened. You will want that time back.
Sky high, near sideline, floats out of bounds. So we'll see where the officials spot this ball. It looks like it's going to be at about the 13-yard line with 19 seconds to play in the half.
Well, you got to assume that seeing he was willing to let the time run off the clock, that he's just going to sit on it and go to the locker room and down 17-0.
Cincinnati with 103 total yards and 114 penalty yards.
Well, Baltimore is leading 17-0, Greg. They don't even have 100 yards offense. They have 94 yards offense, and this is a very conservative Bengals team heading to the locker room down 17-0.
Certainly a conservative finish to a first half that wasn't very good for the Bengals, but means everything to the Baltimore Ravens in their pursuit of the Bengals in the AFC North. We come to the end of the first half here in Baltimore, and it was all Ravens. 17-0. We're back with the Verizon halftime report after this message and a word from your local station. You're watching the NFL on CBS. Flacco puts it up for grabs, and it's intercepted. Dalton over the middle, intercepted. Flacco to the end zone, caught by Torrey Smith for the touchdown. Welcome back to Baltimore, where our halftime score, the Ravens leading the Cincinnati Bengals by a score of 17-0. Let's take a look at the first half performance presented by Intel, and Joe Flacco taking advantage of that field position for one of his touchdown passes in the first half. Welcome back, everyone. Greg Gumbel along with Dan Deerdorf. It was a strange first half if you're a Cincinnati Bengals fan, because you're left to wonder, number one, what were they doing in the first half, and number two, what the heck are they going to do to correct it in the second?
Well, yeah, because you certainly haven't seen anything from their passing game that would give you some confidence. Andy Dalton is he can't even get anywhere near 50% throwing the football, and there's got to be a level of frustration with Cincinnati in that they're losing 17-0 to a team that doesn't even have 100 yards in offense. I think the Ravens have like 94 total yards in the first half, and it's just because of short fields and whatnot. The Bengals are in a pretty big hole in one of the toughest stadiums in which to win.
The good news for the Bengals is that they will get their hands on the football first here in the second half, but they're going to have to correct some major problems. They're going to have to find a way to protect Andy Dalton for starters.
Yes. His pocket has been collapsing. Dean Pease has been throwing some really good pressures at the Bengals, and they've shown an inability to deal with it. But again, we talked about this, Greg, at the start. This Ravens team, since John Harbaugh became the head coach, when their backs were against the proverbial wall, they have won the games that they had to win. And this certainly was in that category. And while you don't put this in the W column yet, the fact that they've got a lead is not very surprising.
Last time Cincinnati was shut out in the first half of a football game was 2 years ago here in Baltimore. Brandon Tate, good running start. And out across the 22, about the 25-yard line. As we look at the first half numbers, and they could be pretty deceiving, but look at that yards per play. I mean, no one's doing anything, Dan.
No, they aren't. Not offensively. It's just that the field position has favored the Ravens because, remember, that long interference call, 48-yard interference call against Reggie Nelson, that set up the first Baltimore touchdown. The Bengals have playmakers in A.J. Green and Giovanni Bernard. These two guys have got to get touches, a fair amount of touches here in the second half.
Dalton going to come out throwing. Pass to the far side of the field. That is complete to the rookie Tyler Eifert. And Eifert up the sideline. Eluded tacklers and knocked out of bounds at about the 35 of the Ravens. James Ahedibo came over to make the play.
Well, nobody told the rookie that he was supposed to go out of bounds when he gets hit. Not once. There's hit number 1, and there is hit number 2 by Upshaw. And his heel was hanging over the white, but it didn't touch. He kept the ball of his feet, his 1 foot rather, in bounds. What an effort by Tyler Eifert.
It's Eifert, and Eifert dropping that one. Let's go back and take a look, and you can hear the fans reacting to the replay on the screen, thinking that he had stepped out.
The heel is over, but doesn't touch. What a job by the officiating crew, who was right on top of that and was able to ascertain that while the foot was hanging over the line, the heel didn't touch it.
It's a good no challenge by John Harbaugh. 2nd and 10 at the Baltimore 35.
Now you can see green all around the ball of that foot.
This has been Jarvis Green Ellis for about 5 to the 30.
This would be so crucial for Cincinnati to get this into the end zone. All of a sudden it is an entirely new game, not just within 10 points, but the way Cincinnati would feel about themselves that they're in this thing, because this team does have big score, big strike capabilities. They've got plenty of confidence in their ability to score points.
Third and 5. Dalton over the middle, and that's complete to A.J. Green, and Green reaching for the first down at the 25-yard line.
Well, James Ahedibo, the safety, just wouldn't let go of A.J. Green. And now, again, another 4th down coming up for Marvin, and he's got to make the decision, do I want to put 3 points on the board, or do I feel comfortable being able to convert? Now, he might have it, looking at the spot of the football. And I'm sure Marvin right now is making up his mind what he's going to do if it is short.
He doesn't have to worry about it.
He got it. Boy, Ahedibo hung on. But again, look at the effort by A.J. Green, and that's where it pays to be 6'5".
By the way, Dan, just proof positive, and we see it every week, how strange a game this is and how unpredictable a league this can be. Early in the 3rd quarter, St. Louis leading Indianapolis 35-0 in Indy.
And we've got a challenge flag thrown. I think John Harbaugh is going to say that he thinks Green's knee was down.
Baltimore is challenging early on the field of the Forest Progress spot.
He thinks that Green's knee was down before he got that full stretch.
After reviewing the play, the runner's right arm was down and the ball was short of the 25-yard line. It'll be 4th down. Baltimore's not charged a timeout.
A good challenge by John Harbaugh. We're talking about a couple inches here. Right there is where the ball is down, and that was not to the yard line. You can see the ball is a little bit short of the yard line, and the spot was actually touching the yard line. So they moved the ball back about 6 inches.
And now Marvin Lewis going to go for it on 4th and inches.
Well, if you're in for a dime, you're in for a dollar. If you can't make 6 inches, you don't deserve to win.
Then Jarvis Green Ellis in the backfield. Dalton on the sneak, and this time he got it.
He got it that time. a much better surge than he got early in the first quarter when they came up short. And that's where you just challenge your offensive line. And that on the right side, an easy push. Andy Dalton got that by a good yard.
So the first down now just inside the 25-yard line for the Bengals, who are badly in need of getting on the scoreboard. Dalton under pressure and threw it away. Courtney Upshaw coming off the edge.
And Dean Pease, the defensive coordinator of the Ravens, I think is having a heck of a game. He is alternating his pressures up the middle, off the edge, and they are keeping this Cincinnati offense off balance.
We have seen a lot of guys coming unblocked today.
And notice where they've been coming from, Greg. Everywhere.
There's Dean Pease, defensive coordinator. Yeah. 2nd and 10. Giovanni Bernard in the Cincinnati lineup. Dalton. Bernard to the 20. Spinning inside the 15 and down at about the 13.5-yard line. And that'll be a first down.
I'd make sure I ran about 5 screens a game, getting the ball to Giovanni Bernard. This guy in the open field has got a gift. And a screen is a great way to get him involved. But he makes people miss.
As you look at the red zone offense for Cincinnati going up against a pretty good red zone defense, this is the Bengals' first trip into the red zone today.
That's quality against quality.
Bernard inside the 10 to the 8. With a little help from his friends.
Well, yes. Kyle Cook, Kevin Zeitler, the center and the right guard. Good push. And this is the drive that the Bengals talked about at halftime. I wasn't in their locker room, but I'll guarantee you Marvin said there's a recipe for getting back in this game. And a successful drive for a touchdown was at the very top of the list.
Haloti Ngata not on the field right now, by the way. 2nd and 6. Dalton running out of time, and he goes down at the 14. Arthur Jones, number 97.
Boy, he was just going to flip it out to Giovanni Bernard, who was just sitting as an outlet out to Andy's left, and Dalton just can't get rid of it. Eifert is not even anywhere close to open. Alex Smith bottled up it. And I don't know why Andy didn't let it go. He had Bernard just standing there.
3rd and 10. He needs the 3-yard line for a first down. 13 yards for a touchdown. Dalton to the end zone. Diving, incomplete. Pass intended for Eifert.
And again, that time, Dean Pease really mixes it up, comes with only a 3-man rush, and drops into complete coverage, zone everywhere. And it would have been a heck of a catch by Tyler Eifert, but you can see at the last second, Darrell Smith comes right across his forearms. Watch him come across the forearms, making it hard for him to hold on to the ball as he falls.
And now Mike Nugent from 32 yards out. He missed a 42-yarder earlier. And this one is right down the middle and good. First points of the day for the Bengals. 17-3 Baltimore.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by Southwest Airlines. Find our fares online only at southwest.com. Taco Bell. Sometimes you gotta live Moss. And by Kelley Blue Book. Everything you need to make a smart new car decision is at kbb.com.
It's an all-new night of comedy on CBS, beginning with How I Met Your Mother and Two Broke Girls, followed by a new Mike and Molly and Mom. It all starts tomorrow at 8/7 Central, only CBS. Greg Gumbel, Dan Deerdorf back in Baltimore. It'll be interesting to see now the effect that this has on the Cincinnati defense, although they have played well today, Dan.
Keep in mind, the Ravens have 2 touchdown drives. One of them was 53 yards. But of those 53 yards, 48 yards of it was on a penalty. Their other touchdown drive was 11 yards. So if you subtract that penalty, they have 16 yards of offense resulting in 14 points. So that makes your point about the fact that the Cincinnati defense has pretty well throttled the Baltimore offense. And if they're looking at, 80 or more yards to go, they're looking at an eternity, at least in their first half production. And there's a good illustration of how the wind actually looks like it's starting to pick up on the field itself.
Cincinnati comes in today with the 5th best defense in the NFL.
Now here in the third quarter, the Ravens would be moving into the wind.
Jacoby Jones in the end zone deep. And will not get a chance to return this one. It'll come out to the 20-yard line on the touchback. We go back to New York. JB, Dan Marino, take it away.
Ooh, once again, Greg, it's Nick Foles.
Nick Foles, he's on fire. Last 2 games, that's 9 touchdown passes, 15 on the year with no picks. This 45-yard touchdown to Riley Cooper. Philadelphia up 17-3.
And how many picks?
Zip, 0, bagel.
Greg Gumbel, Dan Dierdorf.
Nick Foles is having himself a good couple of weeks, huh? No kidding. First down from the 20-yard line. And Flacco to throw. Underneath, Jacoby Jones. And Jones gets about 9, close to the 30-yard line.
And when we were talking to Joe, again, we talked about the strategy of trying to help the running game by throwing your way into a successful running attack. And that's what I think they're trying to do here on first down by throwing it so often.
Alaska.
And he's going to throw it again. Pulls it down. Rice in the backfield and brought down for a loss.
Well, Reggie Nelson is spying on Ray Rice. His job on this particular defensive call, he's just squatting down and he's got Rice measured. And the minute he sees Flacco's going to dump the outlet, wham, he is right on it.
Well, Ray Rice, when we talked to him yesterday, he said, I'm due. And you know what? We're all due for a complete football game.
Well, those 10 rushing yards are on 6 carries. He's got to be frustrated.
On 3rd and 6, Flacco going to throw, and that's complete to Torrey Smith for a first down across the 30 to about the 31-yard line. Tackle made by Adam Jones.
Adam Jones arguing that he got the ball to come loose. I don't think there's any question. Yeah, it's after Torrey Smith is on the ground. He's digging at the football, but it does come loose. But Torrey Smith had secured the catch, made a couple steps prior to that. That's a complete catch.
And this is Rice.
Nothing.
And Rice is just not being able to get any running room at all. Let's get another update from New York, guys.
Hey, Greg, Dan Dierdorf like touchdown scored this way.
Set up by a big punt return. Pittsburgh's Le'Veon Bell up the middle, 4 yards for the touchdown. 17-3 Pittsburgh.
Grind him out. Let the O-line do its job. Greg Gumbel and Dan Dierdorf.
JB, you speak the truth. That's what touchdowns are supposed to look like.
JB, you have awakened the bear.
A.Q. Shipley, you can see when he's flexing his hands like that, he took a shot and he's trying to get the feeling back in his arms and his hands.
Now things getting a little thin on the offensive line for Baltimore.
Yeah, keep in mind that Shipley's playing the left guard spot that was vacated by Kelechi Osemele, who unfortunately is on injured reserve. Going to need back surgery. Shipley, one of the shorter offensive linemen in football at 6'1", but a good, solid technician. Not a Pro Bowler, but a good, solid player.
Taking his place, number 76, Ja Reed, a third-year lineman out of Central Florida. 2nd and 10. Flacco, and then another crossing pattern, and that's incomplete, intended for Marlon Brown. It'll be 3rd and 10. Covered and covered well by Vincent Ray.
And again, though, Greg, that's a throw that Joe's not real happy with, because he had a chance to hit Brown in stride, and it just It was a bit inaccurate.
Third and 10. And here come the Bengals. Flacco can't get it away, and he goes down at the 24-yard line.
Well, Joe didn't have an outlet. All of his receivers were at least 20 yards downfield. Ray Rice stays in to block as he does a good job picking up Reggie Nelson, but Vincent Ray shakes loose and comes right up the middle and gets right into the chest of Joe Flacco.
You know, I know Vincent Ray is filling in for the injured Ray Maualuga, but they've got to find a place for him on the field when Maualuga's healthy.
We're calling his name a lot.
Brandon Tate should have a chance to run this one back. Pulls it in his 30-yard line. 40 and out of bounds. Good return by Brandon Tate. 7.5 to play in the third quarter. The Bengals back on offense. They trail 17-3. In honor of Veterans Day, for every point scored during the NFL's 32 Salute to Service games, the league will donate $100 to each of its nonprofit partners, the Pat Tillman Foundation, USO, and Wounded Warrior Project. To join the salute and learn more, visit NFL.com/salute. Dan, what did you just say to me about John Harbaugh?
Well, I said one of these trips off the field, the Ravens offense is going to get met by an irate John Harbaugh. Incredibly, they still don't have 100 yards in offense. At 99 yards, they just can't find a way to move the ball against this Cincinnati defense. And now the Bengals, they've got to be feeling good about this thing. You know, down 2 touchdowns, but they've got to have a little optimism.
Dalton back to the air, and that ball is intercepted.
I believe it is.
Picked off by Ladarius Webb. And we have a penalty marker down. And a lot of conversation. And Walt Coleman, with his back to you, going to tell us what it's all about.
This might be an unpopular call here.
There's no foul for defensive pass interference. First down, Baltimore.
Well, it might have been, but it's not. Andy Dalton, again, looks like he's looking at the jersey of his receiver, Marlon Jones, and what an effort by Webb.
Marvin Jones just outfought for the football.
Webb, yeah, I mean, Webb is behind. He is behind Jones and somehow is able to reach around in front and take the football away. That's an extraordinary piece of work by Ladarius Webb.
Now, if I were Marvin Lewis, I'd question as to whether or not that happened after the players were on the ground.
Oh, it looked like he was taking. It looked like he was taking it away in midair.
Well, there's certainly enough time to throw the challenge flag, but he's not going to do that.
And that looked like what an effort by Webb from behind to take that football away.
This is Bernard Pierce. Pierce looking for running room, coming to the near sideline, across midfield and into Cincinnati territory.
Well, keep in mind there, Greg, because that was a turnover, they look at it upstairs, so it's not up to Marvin to throw a flag or not.
My error, you're
right.
right.
But what a job by Webb. That just, you don't see a guy making an interception from that position.
2nd and 6. Pierce out of the backfield. And not much to go on there. Let's go back to that interception.
Right there, Andy Dalton's got to be thinking, well, that's a completion. I've thrown it right to my guy. But from behind with the strength of his left arm, Ladarius Webb takes it away. I don't think there's any question the officials were right. When they hit the ground, Webb had control of the football.
Meanwhile, Flacco back looking at a 3rd down and 6 now. And
might have been a flinch.
It is.
On that Baltimore offensive line.
False start, number 82, offense. 5-yard penalty, still third down.
Torrey Smith.
Well, they flagged Torrey Smith at the wide receiver position, but there looked like multiple tremors up and down that offensive line. And again, another third and long situation for the Ravens. Just have no offensive continuity going at all.
Baltimore averaging 2.6 yards a play. Here they come after Flacco, and he throws for Rice midfield and no further, and they'll have to kick.
Well, Wallace Gilberry, what a play he makes. Coming from a defensive tackle spot, he flows out and he takes down Ray Rice before he can get in behind his convoy. Man, this Bengals defense is just playing really good football.
Sam Cook, we'll see what he can do now about backing this Bengals offense up. Hangs it up high. Tate fields it at the 6. Tripped up and out of bounds at about the 15-yard line by Brendan Trollock with the special teams play. Dalton and the offense back on the field.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by Killzone Shadowfall. What will you sacrifice for peace?
.5:23 to play in the third quarter. And Andy Dalton, you look at his numbers, it is time for him to start putting some good ones on the board. This has been Jarvis Green Ellis for a couple.
Yeah, 11 of 28 without a touchdown and toss in a pair of interceptions. That is about as dismal of a set of numbers as you'll see a quarterback have in the National Football League.
And over a 2-game span, it's no touchdown passes and 5 interceptions.
Right. A lot of yards against Miami, over 300 yards, but who cares? You throw 3 picks and no touchdowns, it doesn't matter.
Dalton to throw. With time, gonna go deep. Double cover down the middle of the field. It is caught at the 40-yard line by A.J. Green. Oh, what an acrobatic grab.
Well, Jimmy Smith and James Ahedebo are there, and Ahedebo has the ball, but it bounces off his hand. It just caroms right to A.J. Green. Ahedebo actually gets a hand on it. There's no way he can control it. He just gets a hand on it. And boy, there's Andy Dalton right into double coverage, and it works out.
You know, your first impression is what makes him throw that ball, but A.J. Green is at the other end of it.
You couldn't even think about throwing that to anybody other than Green.
That one is tipped and almost intercepted on the far side of the field.
Yeah, tipped. 2 Bengals got their hands on that. At the line of scrimmage. I think Courtney Upshaw might have got a hand on it.
Jay Gruden, the offensive coordinator of the Bengals.
Take a look at it right there. That is Upshaw. He just grazes it, but alters its trajectory.
2nd and 10. The rookie Giovanni Bernard in the backfield. Quick pass to the far side. That's A.J. Green, and Green can't escape the push, and there's a loose football, and it is ruled down. Ruled down back at the 41-yard line. Darrell Smith's visions of
The
grandeur.
ruling is down by contact. Third down.
Let's go back and listen.
From that angle, it certainly looks like Green has the ball until he... Well, that ball, let's see what comes out. The back of the hand hits the ground first before a knee or a back, or a knee or any other part hits the ground.
And here comes Walt Coleman over to John Harbaugh.
The problem is that's a play, and we're going to get the explanation right now from Walt Coleman.
Baltimore is challenging early on the field that the runner was down by contact.
So he'll go under the hood. We'll take a timeout. We'll see if this ends up going in the opposite direction.
We're back here in Baltimore. Let's watch A.J. Green. I think before a knee or an elbow or anything hits the ground, he loses control of the football. That, while it was ruled down by contact, there is a clear recovery after this. Even though the whistle blew, the NFL rule states this is going to be Baltimore's football. If Walt Coleman agrees with me, they won't get the yardage. It'll be at the spot of the recovery. But I think Baltimore is going to come out of this with the football. The back of the hand is part of the hand. The wrist is part of the hand. That doesn't put you down. That does not put you down where the fumble would have come after you were down. I think it's a fumble.
After reviewing the play, the ruling on the field stands. Baltimore is charged with their first team timeout, and that is all their challenges for the game.
Wow.
You know, John Harbaugh is upset, and I don't think you can blame him.
To me, his knee hasn't touched yet.
And the ball is
and
coming
the
up.
forearm wasn't down. The back of the hand, the way they've always explained it to us, the back of the hand doesn't put you down. Well, I'm sure that'll be talked about all week. I'm not changing my opinion. I thought that was a fumble. I think we know what John Harbaugh thinks. But he is a little biased.
Meanwhile, Dalton looking at a 3rd and 11 and needs the 30-yard line for a first down. They just caught a break. Let's see if they can make something of it. Dalton throwing this sideline. It is incomplete. Batted away by Jimmy Smith.
Now Jimmy Smith that time draws the coverage on A.J. Green. And at that ball from Andy Dalton coming all the way across the field doesn't have a whole lot on it, and Jimmy Smith has time to move in front and just pretty effortlessly get a left hand on it and swat it away.
The Bengals 0 for their last 8 on 3rd down. That one goes straight up in the air. He may not get double figures on this punt. That's rolled out of bounds at about the 25-yard line. That's a 16-yard punt. Nothing to write home about. Coming up next, Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos, Phillip Rivers and the San Diego Chargers, or the Texans taking on the Arizona Cardinals. Check your local listings for the game in your area.
Well, kudos to the Baltimore defense. After Cincinnati getting what I thought was a break, they stiffened and forced that punt.
The pitch for Rice. For a couple. And we've been saying that all day long.
Well, Jim Caldwell goes to a run this time on first down and can only come up with a couple. Again, we want to reiterate Ray Rice maintaining that he is 100% healthy, that the left hip flexor that he suffered in week 2 is in the past, and that he feels great, and he's irritated at people talking about that maybe he's lost his
But yet he has 12 rushing yards today. That pass is complete to Marlon Brown, and that's a first down.
Well, this undrafted rookie from Georgia, what a pleasant surprise for the Baltimore Ravens. And that ball from Joe was a little bit behind. He had to reach back and go up and get it. I'm telling you, when you get this kind of production from an undrafted free agent rookie, you have kudos to Ozzie Newsome. He has hit another home run.
Rice again. Dancing, but nowhere to go.
Michael Johnson is just, can't hardly blame Ray Rice for that. Johnson was there. Vontez Burfict.
Now, Dan, they've been able to survive today without the running game, but that's been due to a lot of help in some quarters from the Bengals. but the Ravens can't expect to progress very far with no running game.
Well, they haven't won this game yet. There's a whole quarter to go, and they haven't shown any life.
Flacco under pressure and had to get rid of it in a hurry. And Reggie Nelson was coming in from the far side.
Boy, I think you can see the frustration on Joe Flacco's face.
3rd and 9.
You have the year they had last year, although they staggered into the playoffs, but then that unbelievable playoff run where Flacco has 11 touchdowns without a single interception.
3rd and 9. Flacco throwing far side of the field, incomplete. Intended for Torrey Smith and covered over there by Adam Jones. I think it's fair to say, Dan, that considering the reputations these two teams had, we expected a lot more offense than this today.
Well, that's interference.
Wow.
That's blatant interference by Adam Jones, who gets away with it. And John Harbaugh, you have every right to go, where's the flag? Jones is pulling down Torrey Smith's arm before the ball is even anywhere near him.
4th and 9. Line drive, kick, and returnable from the 10-yard line. Brandon Tate. And Tate across the 15 to about the 17-yard line. Let's get another update from JB and Dan Marino in New York, guys.
Greg and Dan, that name again, Nick Foles.
Yes, Nick Foles, 3rd touchdown of the day, 10 in the last 2 weeks to Riley Cooper, 32 yards, 27-10, Philadelphia.
Boy, talk about capitalizing on an opportunity. Greg Gumbel, Dan Dierdorf.
Call him Cooper Loop.
Wow, that is. And Riley Cooper, how about the year he's having? Considering that it started in a cloud of controversy.
So with 1:04 to play here in the 3rd quarter,
we're gonna punt this ball again.
Right?
We've had no explanation from Walt Coleman.
Walt Coleman made an announcement without his microphone on. By the way, Kevin Huber of the Cincinnati Bengals punting for an average of less than 30 yards a kick today.
Well, we saw no flag, nor have we heard an explanation. But
they are kicking it again.
We're re-kicking nonetheless.
And Cook. And Tate gathers this one in exactly where he picked up the last one at his own 10-yard line, and he's back to about the 22 or the 23.
Oh, good lane integrity that time by the Ravens punt coverage. That is the way you're supposed to do it.
So 54 seconds to be played here in the 3rd quarter. And Andy Dalton, who is 13 of 32 on the day. 144 yards and 2 picks.
Well, without a lot of help from their offense, this Ravens defense is playing some ball. Question is, can they keep this Cincinnati offense, this high-powered offense, bottled up for another quarter?
This is Bernard for just a couple. D'Angelo Tyson making the stop.
Well, this is a throwback game here for this Ravens defense. This is the kind of defense that we saw them play back at the turn of the century when they won the Super Bowl in 2000. This is the calling card of this franchise, and they're spinning off a beauty here through 3 quarters.
Dalton on 2nd and 7, running out of time, and he goes down. Looked like Elvis Dumerville. Oh,
and he just gets inside Andrew Whitworth and Andy Dalton, a straight four-man rush. What was unusual about it is that one of the four guys rushing was Ladarius Webb, the corner, but still, four-man pressure, a sack.
We're come to the end of 3, 17-3 Baltimore. Back after this message and a word from your local station. You're watching the NFL on CBS. Our aerial coverage today being provided by MetLife as we welcome you back to Baltimore, the start of the fourth quarter, with Mark Wolf, our producer, Suzanne Smith, our director, Greg Gumbel, Dan Deerdorf, and the rest of our crew. 17-3 Ravens, and that man has to kick it into gear and do it pretty soon.
Yeah, well, 3rd and 13 is not the ideal time to have to do it.
Dalton going down again. Doomerville leading the way.
Well, this is just a manhandling by the front wall of this Baltimore defense. Granted, with a lead, 3rd and 13, the deck is stacked in their favor, but they are just collapsing the pocket all around Andy Dalton. And just, he disappears under a wave of purple shirts.
Huber gets a better punt away this time. Camden Doss at his own 41. And back to his own 45. And no more. And the whistle is down, and that ball does not officially come out. So Joe Flacco back onto the field.
Well, the important part is he's got 2 touchdowns in there, which is the difference in this game right now. The first one was all because of Joe extending the play, but with his legs and finding Dallas Clark. He gets hit trying to throw it, and that's the pick. And there's his last throw for a touchdown that went to Torrey Smith, who climbed the ladder, went up and got it, made a beautiful catch. But again, those 2 touchdown drives were not very far.
This is Bernard Pierce. Bernard Pierce maybe a yard, maybe not, maybe a half yard at the most. This has not been a great day for either quarterback.
No. Well, the first touchdown drive by Baltimore, remember Reggie Nelson got a 48-yard interference penalty on an underthrown ball. So it's not like it would have been a clear-cut touchdown. That ball was severe. If Reggie Nelson would have turned around and played it properly, he might have had a chance at an interception instead of a huge interference call.
Flacco has been sacked 4 times today. Dalton has been sacked 3 times. Flacco to throw, and that is incomplete, penalty marker.
His receiver ends up on the ground, Torrey Smith.
Prior to the pass, holding, number 23, defense. 5-yard penalty, automatic first down.
That's Terrence Newman.
Well, I think this explains how Torrey Smith ends up on the ground. Newman had both hands on his shoulders, and he pushed him down beyond 5 yards.
Yeah, I never played corner, Dan, but I'm pretty sure you can't do that.
Yeah. Well, you're allowed to get your hands on him, and you're allowed to hit him, but you can't ride him beyond that 5. And look at that, Baltimore has 5 first downs because of a Cincinnati penalty.
Those are gifts.
Yeah, those are gifts.
This is Bernard Pierce. And Pierce just inside the Cincinnati 45.
And for the Baltimore running game, that is an extremely successful play. For 5 yards on a first down. That has been a rarity in the Baltimore rushing attack today.
The big Baltimore rush today has been Tyrod Taylor, the quarterback in on an end around.
Yeah, he did that. He got that for 18 yards.
2nd and 5. Movement up front.
That's A.Q. Shipley, the left guard.
Full start, number 68, offense, 5-yard penalty, still 2nd down.
He was eager to get out there and make a block.
Dan, from the very beginning, you have pounded it into all of us on our crew here that this is the kind of game the Baltimore Ravens win.
Well, I just don't recall in John Harbaugh's tenure, where they were so vocal about the importance of a game here at home at M&T, where they are just a radically different team. They always hold serve here when they have to.
2nd and 10. That pass almost intercepted on the near side of the field by Vontaze Burfict.
Well, that is 2 interceptions that have been dropped by the Bengals. Now, Burfict, that would have been a highlight material, having to go out there. He got it to come back to his body, and I can't call that a drop. I misspoke when I called that a drop. And the way he had to lay out for that, that would have been a thing of beauty. But Crocker dropped a sure one earlier.
So Flacco on 3rd and 10, and he throws up the seam, and that one is intercepted at the 30-yard line by Terrence Newman. Newman on the return, looking for blocks, not going to find any. And he's brought down at his own 28-yard line.
Well, right into double coverage, bracketed short, bracketed long. Terrence Newman makes a pretty easy interception.
2 giveaways today by the Baltimore Ravens. They're within 1 of their entire total last season.
Well, I have seen some teams do a good job disguising coverage. We're going to look at it after this play. Masterful by Cincinnati.
Dalton, sideline. Batted down by Ladarius Webb. Let's go back to that interception.
You hear about disguising a coverage. See Terrence Newman right here? Terrence Newman looks like outside coverage. The outside coverage actually belongs to that guy, Reggie Nelson, on the inside. Watch him bail out, and then Newman falls back inside. Joe Flacco not expecting that at all. That is a brilliant design by Mike Zimmer. Joe Flacco thinks Newman is locked up on the outside, and he falls back to the inside, completely unexpected.
Dalton now 2nd and 10. Little pump fake and throws it up the middle and wide open. Close to midfield is A.J. Green for a first down.
And a rare instance where the Ravens defense loses track of A.J. Green. He hasn't been that wide open in a long time. And again, just working out of the slot, A.J. Green, and he's able to just find a big soft hole in that Ravens zone before Hennebo could put a hit on him.
So the Bengals now at their own 49 with a new set of downs. 11:50 to play in regulation. Dalton on fake again. And this one over the middle, and he's got his man again inside the 35 to the 33 is Green.
And rookie Matt Elam, he's back there in coverage, and he loses his footing and ends up on the ground. Again, a big hole in that zone, and you can see Elam is already on the ground. A.J. Green almost dropped that thing and was able to pull it back in.
Green now 6 catches for 91 yards on the day.
Well, this is defying everything the Ravens have said about not letting A.J. Green do the damage.
Bernard out of the backfield, trying to turn the corner, and Jimmy Smith won't let him.
Again, if Cincinnati can just somehow get this down to the end zone, which is a giant if, because they haven't shown any ability to this point to be able to do that. Last couple of passes, his offensive line has given Dalton some time.
Lots of people crossing the offensive or the line of scrimmage.
Well, that penalty is going to be against Baltimore. Elvis Dumerville was all the way across the line.
Neutral zone infraction, number 58, defense unabated to the quarterback. 5-yard penalty, still 2nd down.
Well, Dumerville guessed the snap count, and Andy Dalton changed it up, and he was only 2 yards across the ball. That's
no
not
more.
So bad, is it?
No more. He didn't even get to the quarterback. 2nd and 3. Baltimore fans cheering on their defense.
Ravens threatening blitz.
Dalton on the run, can't escape, goes down at the 30-yard line, courtesy of D'Angelo Tyson.
Well, I tell you what, Matt Elam, the rookie, screws him up because he gets up there, he fakes blitz, and then he falls off and picks up Tyler Eifert, the tight end. And you could see that you could see Dalton turn that direction. He wanted to throw to Eifert, and he didn't count on Elam being out there.
Now Dalton with a big 3rd and 7.
Threatening the A-gaps again.
0 for their last 9 on 3rd down. Dalton throws this side of the field, and that is complete to A.J. Green. And that is about 2 yards short of a 1st down, but we have a penalty marker down.
Offside, number 21, defense. 5-yard penalty, still 3rd down.
That's Ladarius Webb ruled offside.
It's not every day you see a corner get called for being offside. Here's Webb right up here. Oh, he is. His momentum, he's walking towards the line, and it's like his momentum got away from him. And he just couldn't keep from stepping into the neutral zone.
So now it's 3rd and 2. Giovanni Bernard in the backfield for Cincinnati. Dalton gonna go for it all. Incomplete inside the 5-yard line to Mohamed Sanu. Covered by Ladarius Webb. Sanu wanted a call that's not coming.
Well, Webb, you can see instead of the jam at the beginning falls off, but look at Webb play the football.
Wow.
He's going up there, but he pulls the arm down. I think that's a good no call on Webb. He doesn't grab the arm until after the ball was there.
Meanwhile, Marvin Lewis has to go for it here on 4th and 2, 9 minutes to play. And
the Ravens called timeout.
Timeout now, Baltimore.
Second charge team timeout, Baltimore.
So Baltimore down to 1 timeout. And 9:03 to play.
Well, but on a 4th down, you don't want to make a mistake. You don't want to find yourself with 10 people out there or 12 or whatever was going on, and the Ravens smart to take a timeout.
And no reason to kick a field goal here.
No, you need 2 touchdowns to tie this thing up. You know, if it's 4th and 8 or 9 or 10, maybe you kick a field goal, but not 4th and 1.5 yards. Walt Coleman yelling at the Ravens defense, guys, get back out here. Let's play.
It is a Ravens defense without Haloti Ngata, who is on the sideline. Remember, he suffered a sprained knee in the 1st half, has played sparingly. 4th and 2.
And these types of plays in the past, protection has been a problem for the Bengals.
They give it to Bernard. No, Dalton with the keeper and slides inside the 20 for the 1st down.
Well, Andy Dalton is not Robert Griffin III nor Colin Kaepernick, but on a 4th down situation, he does the read option, and when he saw the collapse by Dumerville to the inside, he just kept it himself. Relatively easy conversion. Good play call.
Bengals keep the drive alive. 1st down at the Baltimore 18. Dalton under pressure. Little flip to Bernard. Bernard, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, Cincinnati.
Against an all-out blitz, a screen can be a devastating call, and that's exactly what this was. The Ravens blitz. They commit a lot of people to the upfield. Matt Elam blitzes play side and can't get back in. And downfield, Tyler Eifert ends up with a good block downfield. And he did a good job of not holding Jimmy Smith. That just worked out for Cincinnati to have that screen called into the Baltimore blitz.
The extra point is good. 8:22 to play here in the fourth quarter. The Bengals pull to within a touchdown. It's 17-10 Ravens.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by AT&T. Rethink possible. Toyota Care. Scheduled maintenance, no cost. And by Ameriprise Financial. More within reach.
Well, the Cincinnati Bengals just served notice not to count them quite out of this one yet. Again, a win for the Bengals would give them a pretty good hold on the AFC North. However, Baltimore with a win, and they jump right back into the thick of things. Remember, with another meeting with Cincinnati on the very last day of the season.
And that was what was really uplifting the Ravens, knowing that they had some control coming into today, knowing they still had both of their games with Cincinnati.
Jacoby Jones in the end zone. This one will come down short of the end zone, and Jones on the run at the 10. And across the 20 to about the 24-yard line. Well, this Bengals defense has stood tall. Can they stand tall again with 8:16 to play in the fourth? Those of you just joining us here in Baltimore, Greg Gumbel, Dan Deerdorf, 17-10. The Ravens leading the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengal defense has stood tall today. They have allowed Baltimore 126 total yards on the afternoon.
And take a look at that, Ray Rice, 23 total yards. That's in 13 touches.
Flacco on the slant off the fingertips of Torrey Smith. It'll be 2nd and 10.
And it's not that the Ravens have been predictable. They've been very aggressive throwing the ball on first down.
Well, Dan, does that play not tell you what little faith they have in their running game right now?
Yes, it does, and for good reason. They can't run.
At a time when they need to take the air out of the football, take some time off the clock, Flacco comes out throwing.
The story of this game, the Ravens have 126 yards of offense.
Flacco over the middle to Rice, and Rice down at about the 27-yard line.
And Cincinnati will take that kind of a play every down.
Vincent Ray, what a football game he has played today.
He has been all over the place, making his second start for Ray Maluga, who missed this game again with a knee for the second week in a row.
Flacco,
Marvin Lewis hoping to have it back next week.
1 out of 4 for 4 yards throwing for Flacco here in the fourth quarter. He's going to throw it again on the blitz. The pass is caught across the 35-yard line by Jacoby Jones. And that'll be a first down.
Boy, look at Jones cover up that football.
And that'll be a flag.
Oh, Torrey Smith knocked Vontaze Burfict to the ground. Now, I thought Burfict was being overly aggressive, and that play was over, and he kept pushing Jones. But then Torrey Smith comes in and shoves Burfict to the ground, and you know the way this works. The last guy ends up being the guy that gets caught.
Walt Coleman is our referee.
After the play is over, personal foul, number 82 for the offense. The play resulted in a first down, so it'll be 15-yard penalty and 1st and 10.
All right, I thought Vontaze Burfict shouldn't have shoved. He could have been flagged, I think, for shoving Jacoby Jones to the ground, but he wasn't. But then Torrey Smith in front of everyone, and I mean everyone, makes it easy for the official to throw a flag. I thought Burfict played way beyond the whistle, had no reason to shove Jones to the ground like that. He gets away with it. Torrey Smith does not.
Now the Ravens get the first down, and then the penalty shoves them back deeper than when they were when the play started.
It was a dead ball foul.
1st and 10. Rice. To the 24.
You know, I know Matt Burke retired, and Assemile's on IR, and Eugene Monroe is now playing left tackle because Bryant McKinney now is down in Miami. There's a lot of new people involved up on the line with this running game. But this is still a surprise week in, week out, looking at these Ravens struggle to run.
Flacco throwing complete across the 30 to 35 to about the 38 is Ed Dixon, the tight end.
Well, Ed Dixon only had 8 receptions coming into this game. He's the blocking tight end. He in no way is scaring a defense the way that Dennis Pitta does, or even Dallas Clark for that matter. And that time they took advantage of the fact that he's one of the last guys that the Bengals defense will identify as a threat.
By the way, Vincent Ray made that tackle.
Yeah, well, what a big first down conversion that was.
Flacco and company from the 38. We stuck under 6 minutes to play. Rice, left side. Nowhere to go.
And again, every time the Ravens are able to move these sticks, they make the job for the Bengals that much tougher.
Cincinnati with all 3 of their timeouts remaining. Baltimore is down to 1, and Andy Dalton itching for a chance to get back.
Well, Joe's got his team up to the line with a lot of time left on the play clock. I wouldn't snap this until I got down to 5 seconds or so.
He chooses not to.
He chooses not to.
He has time, still with time, rolling and looking, and going to run it, and runs out of bounds. And he got hit as he went out of bounds, and it drew the flag.
And now, again, Vontaze Burfict is in the middle of the Ravens bench. And this, if this is a personal foul against Cincinnati, a major error.
After the play is over, personal foul, unnecessary roughness, number 55, defense. 15-yard penalty from the end of the run. First down.
Where is Joe Flacco? You know, again,
on the border.
On the border. Burfict launched himself. When he left his feet, Joe Flacco was still in the field of play.
Hard to tell whether Marvin is upset at his player or at the call.
It's hard to get upset with Vontaze Burfict. He is, when he leaves the ground to hit a guy who's in the field of play, what are you supposed to do?
5 minutes to play. Flacco with time. Gonna go for it all. Torrey Smith deep behind the secondary, incomplete.
Well, as Torrey Smith has done his whole career, even against a deep safety, he's able to get behind the defense. And Joe Flacco overthrows him by about 6 inches. But in a pass that went about 50 yards in the air, that was an incompletion by about 6 inches. And again, the wind at his back. You wonder if that was a factor.
Rice can't get anywhere. Michael Johnson, Reggie Nelson with the play.
And Ray Rice's inability to get going is just, what a story it is here in Baltimore. And you can just see and feel the frustration just radiating from Ray Rice. We could certainly sense it the other day.
2 out of 13 on third down today for the Ravens.
Which way you go?
The Bengals are only 2 of 14.
Flacco shakes one, lost the football on the ground at midfield.
That's a fumble. Joe Flacco lost that football, and Cincinnati has it.
Flacco at the bottom of the pile, but without the football. That's James Harrison reaching in.
James Harrison, number 92, looks like he swatted the wrist of Joe Flacco and knocks the football loose. When Joe's hand started forward, it did not have a football. That is an obvious fumble.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by Killzone Shadowfall. What will you sacrifice for peace?
Welcome back to Baltimore. 4:01 to play. 17-0 Ravens at halftime, and the Bengals have clawed their way back. They have the ball at midfield. A Cincinnati win would give them a 3.5-game lead in the AFC North. The Ravens trying to put that off. Giovanni Bernard gets a yard, maybe. Andy Dalton has not had a great day throwing the football. Neither quarterback has.
Oh, but Andy Dalton not even approaching 50%. 17 of 38. Those are just dreadful numbers. 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. Almost borderline horrific statistics for a quarterback in today's NFL.
Dalton had to throw it away. Chris Canty applying the pressure. Joe Flacco, on the other hand, has turned the ball over 3 times here today with 2 interceptions and a fumble.
And Carlos Dunlap knocked that ball loose. I think I might have said James Harrison, but Harrison recovered it. But again, it was a good look at that empty hand of Joe Flacco coming forward without the ball.
Now on third down, Cincinnati 2 for their last 14 and 0 for their last 10.
And a lot of that is because Baltimore has completely collapsed the pocket.
Dalton, right up the middle, scrambling for it, looking for the first down, and he gets it inside the 40-yard line. Clock continues to move with 3:10 to play.
That is just a sensational effort by Dalton. A 4-man rush. He gets away there. Suggs can't quite get him there, and then he makes a Hedebo miss. That's the big miss. Suggs right there, but now Andy Dalton is going to make James Hedebo the safety miss, and that last miss is what allowed him to move the sticks.
Bengals at the Baltimore 38. Bernard to the near side. Can't find any running room. And that was cut short at the 37-yard line by Lardarius Webb, who has been really active today.
And when Jay Gruden now is calling the plays for the Bengals, obviously every series is a 4-down series. Field goals meaningless here with 2 minutes and 20 seconds left, so every series involves 4 downs.
Second and 9. Dalton throwing, overthrew it, intercepted, picked off by Hedebo, his second of the day.
And another miserable day for Andy Dalton is approaching its end.
Cincinnati has been able to grab 3 Baltimore turnovers today, but have managed only 7 points off of those turnovers.
Now, Cincinnati has all 3 timeouts. Without a Ravens first down, they will get the ball back.
Bernard Pierce with running room out to the 24. And a timeout here. The Bengals use their first. Let's go back to that interception.
Well, it's just a classic overthrow. This is A.J. Green in the slot who's just going to come down. But watch this ball. He's actually open. He's got good position right there. But the ball from Andy Dalton, a severe overthrow. And we're talking like 5 feet over his head. Matt Elam gets his hands on it first, and the old tip drill then to a Hedebo. But and that ball just...
Not the first overthrow of the day for Andy Dalton by a long shot.
No.
He's been doing it all day.
And again, he had such a wonderful stretch. He had those 3 games against Buffalo, Detroit, and the Jets, where he had 11 touchdowns, 2 interceptions.
Vontaze Burfict being helped off the field.
He doesn't want to go.
No, he doesn't.
And he doesn't have to leave because they took a timeout. But, he had that wonderful stretch, and then it came to a screeching halt in that loss to Miami last week, where he didn't throw a touchdown, but he threw 3 picks. And now 3 more this afternoon.
And they're having trouble convincing number 55 to get off the field.
Well, this is where the doctors have to take over. Yeah, we applaud his competitive spirit, but the medical staff has to assert themselves, and they did.
Flacco, 18 for 34.
He's barely over 50%.
Dalton, 17 for 40.
I mean, Joe Flacco has thrown the ball 34 times for 119 yards.
Rice to the 27. And another timeout. Cincinnati uses it. 1:46 on the clock.
Well, again, this game got started. Andy Dalton with an overthrow, intercepted. Then Torrey Smith ends up with a touchdown. And then Giovanni Bernard on a screen pass into the blitz. He ends up with a touchdown. And then Joe Flacco gets the ball knocked out by Dunlap. And then the last play, which just happened, the Hedebo's interception that sets up this possession by the Ravens, who, if they don't move the chains here, Cincinnati will use their last timeout, and they're going to get the ball back with a fair amount of time.
Rice to the 30, and that's short of a first down.
He's going to be a full yard short.
Marvin Lewis said, we called timeout. And so that is all of the the Bengals timeouts for the day.
And it's pretty simple what they have to do. Not real complicated. You got to get a touchdown. You don't have any timeouts. The offense should go out to the field having a couple plays already called. Jay Gruden there, the offensive coordinator on the right. He's had this whole possession to plot this series because they knew exactly what was going to happen as long as the defense did their job and didn't give Baltimore a first down.
Adam Jones is going to be back to field this punt.
A pretty dangerous open field guy is Pac-Man.
Jones at the 25. And out to the 40-yard line. Pretty good return. So here comes Andy Dalton again. No timeouts. And 1:28 on the clock.
And right now, you know that Suggs, Doomerville and company, they've had a pretty good day of collapsing the pocket around Andy Dalton.
Dalton has been sacked 4 times.
The big play guys to the top, A.J. Green, Giovanni Bernard right there. The game changers for Cincinnati.
Dalton, Eifert. And Eifert about a yard shy of a first down at the 49-yard line. 1:20 on the clock.
And Andrew Whitworth, the left tackle, he looked to be a little shaken up. It took him a moment to get up and get back to the line of scrimmage for Cincinnati.
Dalton had it tipped at the line of scrimmage, incomplete, and that stops the clock with 1:03 to play.
And that's at least the third that I can recall where the Ravens have tipped an Andy Dalton pass. Again, the key for the Ravens, keep everything in front of them. Try to keep the guys in bounds if at all possible.
3rd and 1.
And don't let A.J. Green get over the top.
Dalton, that pass is complete for a first down to Mohamed Sanu.
The Ravens will give up plenty of those.
Coming up on 50 seconds to play. Cincinnati cannot stop the clock. Dalton up the middle, tackled at the 45-yard line by Terrell Suggs.
Smart play by Suggs. not rushing past the quarterback, but falling into a lane where you think he might try to escape the pocket. Smart football.
2nd and 8. Dalton running out of time, and he goes down at the 47. Elvis Dumervil.
Well, it's been the story of the game. Defensively for the Ravens, their front group dominating the offensive line of the Bengals.
Time is running down. Dalton spikes the ball and stops the clock with 2 seconds to play.
And setting up now a 4th and 15. Marvin Lewis has been watching his quarterback under duress. Elvis Dumervil just reaches inside with those long arms of his.
Andrew Whitworth told us yesterday that he felt Dumervil was just unbelievable at being able to bull rush off of the defensive outside.
Credit to the coverage of the Ravens right there, because Andy Dalton wasn't exactly getting ready to throw that football. He didn't even have the ball cocked and ready to go.
Here we go. Dalton going for it all. Tipped in the air. Caught by the Bengals. A.J. Green.
What a mistake by the Ravens. You swat the ball down. You don't pop it up. Right there, I'm not sure what he was thinking. He's the last guy, and that ball's on its way to the ground, and he sticks out his left hand and knocks it up into the air. Right there. It's like, it looked like Ehedebo was playing volleyball.
Nugent for the tie. And overtime.
You practice this. Everything involved in swatting the ball down. I can't pretend to know what James Ehedebo was thinking. It must have just been an instinctive reaction, but he just laid up a softball to A.J. Green. If he just lets that ball travel on down to the ground, the Ravens are in the locker room doing interviews, and instead he just serves it right to A.J. Green. That is not how you practice.
So the Bengals all smiles at midfield.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. This was 17-0, wasn't it?
At halftime.
That's why you're smiling.
All right, gentlemen, we'll play a 15-minute overtime period. Each team will get to possess the ball unless we have a safety or a touchdown. Each team gets 2 timeouts. Replay will be up in the booth. Cincinnati is the visitors. You'll call the coin. The Ravens is heads. NFL is tails. Call tails. It is the tails. Cincinnati will receive. Cincinnati won the toss. They will receive. Good luck, man.
Can the Bengals come all the way back? This AFC North and its championship very well at stake here in Baltimore. We'll be back. As you might imagine, all is not sweetness and light on the Ravens side of the field. Just a few moments ago, Jimmy Smith giving James Ehedebo an earful.
And he doesn't stop after one earful. He keeps it going. Frustration bubbles over. And it's no surprise. You got the game won, and then you give a chance.
So now the Bengals get the football first.
Remember, a touchdown or a safety on the first possession. If you kick a field goal, the other team gets an opportunity to possess the ball. Everything, this is all like the last couple minutes of a game. Everything is handled from a review standpoint by the replay booth upstairs. So the Bengals are going to get first crack at it.
Brandon Tate is deep. And Tate will not get a chance to return this one. It'll be first down at the 20-yard line for Dalton and the Bengals. Cincinnati playing in its second straight overtime game. They lost in OT at Miami.
And it's their third overtime game of the season. They actually had one against Buffalo that they won. So, and I'm sure right now Andy Dalton is checking to see where the goal line is, because that's how their overtime game a week ago with Miami ended, with him ending up trapped in the end zone by Cameron Wake for his safety.
Dalton. That's complete. And hit almost immediately is Alex Smith making his first reception of this season.
And Darrell Smith was in his hip pocket. So Smith on Smith.
Pickup of 3 yards, 2nd and 7.
Well, the storyline of the Bengals offense against the Ravens defense continues into overtime. A clean pocket has been very hard to come by for Andy Dalton.
Giovanni Bernard alongside Dalton in the backfield. Dalton on the quick pass underneath to Green, and Green diving for a first down to the 31, maybe the 32-yard line.
Good, solid, high percentage throw on the slant. And that's one of the ways that A.J. Green has really developed into a more complete receiver in his third year. His rookie year, he was a guy who loved to play the game between the numbers and the sidelines. Didn't have a whole lot of interest about going inside and getting whacked. He's not afraid to do that now.
A.J. Green with a new Cincinnati record, 151 receiving yards today. Bernard straight ahead, breaking into the secondary, across the 45 to the 48-yard line, and another first down.
Well, the ball handling by Dalton fakes the quick screen to the outside, a complete pivot, and then a lead blocker in Tyler Eifert, his tight end. Now that is a good-looking play drawn up by Jay Gruden right there. And you can see it found the Ravens defense had vacated the middle. And Bernard took a pretty good shot at the end of that running play.
Bernard to the sideline for Ben Jarvis, Green, Ellis into the backfield. Gets the handoff. He'll go up the middle to about the 47 of the Ravens.
Giovanni Bernard came into this game with some sore ribs. There was some question as to whether or not he was going to be able to play. He looked like he's in some discomfort over there on the Cincinnati sideline. He has really gutted it out today.
Tough little guy, isn't he?
Yes, he is. You got to wonder, though, if whatever pain medication they were able to give him isn't starting to wear off here in overtime.
2nd and 5. Dalton for Green, and that one was almost picked off by Webb.
Ladarius Webb, he read this all the way, and he really jumps his route. He's really, look at him, he was ready to come in on that slant. He made his move to the inside simultaneously with A.J. Green. That was really just spectacular by Webb. That's doing your homework.
Dalton throwing, and that is caught by Tyler Eifert for the first down.
And Darrell Smith, look at the coverage that Smith has underneath. How does Eifert from behind reaches in front of Darrell Smith and makes the catch? Wow, you can't hardly have better coverage. And that ball is loose, and he fights and gains control of it on the way down.
First down at the Baltimore 41. Bernard back into the game. Dalton, pump fake. Going deep, nobody there. Eifert went inside. The pass was out to the sideline.
Well, that's as good an effort as you're ever going to see from anybody. Tyler Eifert making that reception on the previous play, and I bet you Darrell Smith still is going, how did he do that? How did he come up with a reception there when I had coverage like that? Again, look at this. Darryl Smith, the ball just kind of slides right along his shoulder pads, right to Eifert, who just fought it in.
Ladarius Webb has come to the sideline. Shucky Brown is in for him at cornerback. 2nd and 10. Handoff to Bernard. And Bernard inside the 40. He'll be about 2 yards short of a first down.
Well, and it looked like Bernard was going to hit the ground. He was yanked backwards and bent down and wouldn't go down.
I asked him if anybody ever told him he was too small to play football. He said, of course. He's heard it all his life.
Well, this should be about a 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, except for that extra effort by Giovanni Bernard.
Instead, it's a 3rd and 2. Bernard in the backfield behind Dalton. Bernard again. And he's not getting a first down, not on this one.
Well, this is going to bring up a 4th down. This would be a 52-yard field goal?
Into the wind.
Into the wind. I don't think, although if you look at the wind is shifted. Look at the flags on top of the stadium.
Well, the flags on the goalpost to our left are blowing into the faces of the Bengals.
We've got an injured Baltimore Raven who can't make it to the sideline.
That's Darryl Smith.
Now, we have seen Marvin Lewis go for a 4th down conversion several times today.
The first one very early in the game on the first possession. But since then, they have gone 3 for 4 when trying it.
Yeah, and one of those was the Hail Mary.
Yes.
The last play of regulation. The problem is if you go for the long field goal and you don't get it, you're serving up fantastic field position. I know it's in Marvin's DNA in this situation to just pooch the ball down there and make the Ravens cover a lot of grass to try to get with, especially considering the fact that the Ravens have done so little offensively. You know, and maybe the fact that they've done so little offensively is factoring into him going for it on 4th down.
Well, Mike Nugent has hit from 54 yards twice this season.
Well, they're going to line up as if they're going to go for it on 4th down. And I think this is Marvin Lewis saying, even if we turn the ball over here, I don't think you can go far against my defense.
Giovanni Bernard in the backfield. Bernard out of the backfield. Shakes one tackler, reverses field. Looking for the first down. And is not going to get there. Great pursuit by the Baltimore defense, led by Corey Graham and James Ahedibo.
And Marvin Lewis has to be horribly disappointed.
Opportunity to possess the ball.
He has to be horribly disappointed that this worked out, not only not converting, but losing major yardage in the process.
And now the Ravens take over at their own 44-yard line.
And of course, James Ahedibo celebrating a central player in the Hail Mary being converted.
Rice shakes one tackle and picks up 2 on the play.
At the most.
Justin Tucker getting warmed up and hoping for a shot. Ray Rice, 15 carries, 26 yards. This comes off of an 11-carry, 17-yard day at Cleveland last week. Baltimore scores here. They win this game. Flacco on the move. Flips it to Rice. Midfield, 45 to the 40, and a first down.
Well, if ever two guys have a chemistry, it is Ray Rice and Joe Flacco in the passing game. Look at Rice. He gets a block. He does his job at the line of scrimmage, but then he's not satisfied to sit there and just say, well, I got my block. He goes out and gives Joe Flacco an outlet. That's an all-pro play by Ray Rice. A good block at the line of scrimmage, a safety outlet, moving the sticks.
Rice inside the 40 to the 38. Games still to come here on CBS today. The Broncos, Peyton Manning, the Chargers and Phillip Rivers, or Houston and Arizona. Still to come here on CBS.
I think John Harbaugh knows that he's got to go farther than this. This is the outer limits of Tucker's ability to make it.
Flacco pulls it down on the move, throwing to the sideline, and that's complete. Ed Dixon was there for the catch, and that's another first down.
Joe Flacco, several times today, has delivered a really good-looking pass, running out of the pocket, buying some extra time. And Ed Dixon fought for control of that football while he was still in bounds and looked like he had completely secured it before he stepped out.
In these occasionally gusting winds, nothing is for certain in the field goal department.
Marvin called a timeout.
First charge timeout. Cincinnati, 30-second timeout.
The old defensive coordinator wants to get his defense over on the sideline and talk about it.
Let's get you back to New York for an NFL Today update. Once again, James Brown, Dan Marino. Guys.
Greg and Dan, it's Boomer taking it with Peyton Manning.
I'm Marino's backup on this one. Here you go. On the Denver Broncos' first possession of the game, Julius Thomas in the flats, going to take it 74 yards. Denver's going to go up 7-0 to begin the game. As a matter of fact, I thought Marvin Lewis should have punted on 4th and 2, guys.
That coming from a former league MVP. Back to Greg and Dan.
Yeah, but that's Boomer.
Well, I'm telling you, Boomer, I agree.
Yes.
Marvin Lewis has been flying in the face of his defensive DNA all game long.
It's been very un-Marvin-like.
No, it's been a theme. He's going to follow it through.
Whistles before Rice can progress very far.
The previous play will be reviewed.
They wait all this time to buzz Walt Coleman to say, I want you to take a look at this. When does Ed Dixon have complete control of the football?
Well,
when I first watched it, it looked like he puts it away and secures it. He's still in bounds.
Is he still bobbling it there as he steps out? He did pass it down a pretty good portion of his body.
But the ball can move as long as it's deemed to be under your control. Now that's the question here. He's still in bounds. There he steps out. I certainly understand this play being reviewed.
But what's taking it so long?
Why did they wait so long to decide whether to review it? At some point in time, you got to give a guy credit for making a play. There was some ball movement, but did it look like Ed Dixon didn't have control of the ball? This was called a catch on the field.
Or maintain control.
Right. This was called a catch on the field. Walt Coleman's going to have to see indisputable evidence to overturn it. All right, no question the ball's loose there, but he's still in bounds. There he's out.
That looks like control to me.
I just don't know. I just don't know how you could overturn it and call that an incompletion. That's one of those deals. I'm not sure you can confirm it, but I'm not sure that you could. I just don't see enough to overturn it. It just looked to me like Ed Dixon had control of the football, and that's supposed to be.
And Walt Coleman is now making his way back onto the field, and we'll hear from him shortly.
Well, Walt and I disagreed last time. I'm not overly confident.
After reviewing the play, the ruling on the field stands.
Met with some approval by Baltimore fans.
Well, it's the right call. Ed Dixon fought that thing in and maintained control. Now again, if he'd have stepped out of bounds on the one step before, he didn't have control of it.
So the line of scrimmage is the Cincinnati 30. First down. The Ravens looking for a win that will pull them back in the race in the AFC North. Rice. It has been tough going for Ray Rice.
He still isn't up to 2 yards a carry. The story coming into this was the fact he was only averaging 2.7. And here with a bunch of touches today, he's got 17 carries for a whopping 30 yards. Now credit Cincinnati for a lot of that. Even without Geno Atkins, this is a good defensive front.
Right. Nothing on that run.
And I think John Harbaugh knows he's got problems on his offensive line as well.
Third and 9. And we'll see if the Ravens center this one up.
Keep in mind, Cincinnati's had their possession.
Right now, you're looking at about a 47-yard field goal attempt. Dante Leach.
Just back to the line of scrimmage.
And here comes Justin Tucker with a chance for the win.
Well, he's got plenty of leg. That's not the issue.
And the flags at the tops of the uprights would show that the wind is to his back. This will be a 46-yarder for the game.
Question, will Marvin call a timeout to try to freeze him?
And there is a timeout.
Second team timeout, Cincinnati.
And that's all that you get in the overtime period. Well, we had an extraordinary play happen to send us to overtime. On 4th and 15, no time on the clock. Andy Dalton launches one, and James Ahedebo tips it directly to A.J. Green. And this stadium went dead silent.
They have a chance to go into an uproar here. 5:34 remaining in overtime. Justin Tucker for the win. The Bengals made the comeback. The Ravens withstood it and win it here in overtime. John Harbaugh sees his team stay alive in the AFC North. 20-17, Baltimore for Dan Deerdorf, Greg Gumbel. So long from Baltimore. You've been watching the NFL on CBS.